What is that noise? That link was sent to us today, right? I'm trying to get to it.
There's no more CEO.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the special meeting of the Luzerne County Board of Elections and Registration. Special meeting for regarding the November 2022 general election printer paper shortage at the polls. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We'll have roll call. Ms. Fusaro?
Here.
Mr. Mangan?
Here.
Mr. Schramm?
Here.
Ms. Cerniak?
Here.
And Ms. Williams? Here. Is there a motion to adopt the special meeting agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the special meeting agenda.
Mr. Schramm makes the motion. Is there a second by Ms. Fusaro? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion passes. The agenda is adopted unanimously. We'll now move into public comment on agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters listed on the agenda. It's limited to 3 minutes and 1 comment time per person. The process will be that all the attendees on the Zoom are muted until they're asked to speak, at which time the IT representative will unmute you. Those who are in person will go first, and then we'll move to the Zoom platform. They'll go second, and anyone who is on a telephone line will go third. And so that will be the order for taking the public comment. If you're on a telephone, in order to raise your hand, I'm told that you would press *9 to raise your hand, but we'll double check at the end just in case that gets missed, and we'll open up the phone lines for anyone who's on the phone, and you could just jump in when we get there. I'd like to add a couple notes before we move into public comment, and that's personal attacks on anyone, board members, county administration will not be allowed. All public comments are to be addressed to the board as a whole in a respectful, civil manner, please. I would also like to remind the public that this board has nothing to do with any kind of personnel actions within the board, such as hirings, transfers, terminations. That's not within the role of the Board of Elections. The board is currently, just to let you know, in the midst of the adjudication process of the November general election. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the vice chair. Mr. Mangan asked if he could share a couple comments before public comment is open.
Thank you. First of all, welcome everyone. I'm actually glad you're all here because we do share in this event that's occurred. So I appreciate your attendance. First, I would like to point out that the board is here, and the board is here in its entirety. And I can assure you that we are all resolute in our commitment to finding out exactly what it is and what went wrong. That's enough about us. I want to kind of go a different direction in that first and foremost, I want to acknowledge some key people that while many things went wrong, many things went to the best of our ability. the poll workers, first and foremost, who man their stations faithfully till 10 o'clock on election night, I think deserve a great deal of praise. And later on, when the time comes, when there's time for public comment, I hope the poll workers in union with the rest of you come forward and make their statements. Secondly, I stood side by side during mail-in ballots with temporary workers that stayed there faithfully all day long, opening ballots, flattening ballots, preparing these to be processed. So their commitment that day is very much appreciated as well. The unsung heroes also are the deputy sheriffs who stand by us all the time and ran from location to location and vendor, trying to procure paper to complete this ballot, this election as smoothly as possible. In addition to them was the district attorney's office, who allocated multiple county detectives to run, in some cases, out of state to try to get the proper paper so that these balloting could continue. So I want to express my gratitude to them and the people that throughout this horrible day really did their best to bring the most efficient election that they could. Also, the effectiveness of the extended voting hours with the court order by Judge Gelb. I don't know how effective it was. We're still counting a lot of those ballots, but the request by both parties to have this extension in order to accommodate and prevent disenfranchisement of the voters, I think that deserves just a little bit of a note to really demonstrate to you people that there were a lot of people that day that really went above and beyond. And I just wanted to take a moment to share that with you. And again, I welcome every and all comments. That's certainly your right, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mangan. Okay, so we're going to move to those who are in person first with the public comments. We'll go for who's in this room. You'll just raise your hand and then we'll invite you forward. After everyone in this room goes, we're going to take the list from the room outside this room, and I will open the door so we can call their names out and they could come in. So first, public comment. Let me get my timer ready. In this room, go right ahead. How about we start in the front row and we work our way back? Go right ahead. Just state your name and your municipality. And of course, this first public comment is specifically for this agenda item, which is the special meetings only agenda item, which is the paper shortage for the general election. Go right ahead.
My name is Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. I'm asking the board if you can adjust the agenda item tonight because it doesn't really bring into full scope of what transpired out there. Really, the paper shortage was one issue and it was a huge issue, but there was a shortage of poll books.
We're going to stick to the agenda item, please. We can't adjust the.
This is an objection. This is an objection to the agenda, which any citizen
you
in
can
Pennsylvania
no, you can
is allowed
talk
to
about
do.
that, but that's for the second
Okay.
public comment. That's for non-agenda items.
But the issue is the agenda that's posted doesn't bring into the other 5 issues that happened out
Our
there.
agenda for our special meeting is for the paper shortage. You can speak to that in the first public comment. Any other items you'd like to speak to, you can speak to in the second public comment.
So at what point are we going to get an agenda that covers the other 4 or 5 issues that
We
I have?
can't change the agenda. It would be a violation of the Sunshine Law. We have to stay with what's on the agenda right now. So continue with the paper shortage for now.
Actually, anything that's de minimis in nature and you're not spending money, you are allowed to change the agenda to incorporate. So all citizens that are here, there are people here that have many issues, not just running out of paper, shortage of poll books.
You can address
Equipment-
that at the second public comment. Anything that you'd like to address for the paper
I
shortage,
have a
please
legal
continue.
objection and I'm asking for a motion from someone there to add a couple of other things here to the agenda. And that is legal under the Sunshine Act. It is de minimis in nature. You're not entering a contract and you're not spending money. You are allowed to add it to the agenda tonight. Will someone make a motion to add an
We
agenda?
need to know what you're adding to the agenda.
What I'd like to add to the agenda is there was a shortage of poll books. My polling station had one poll book. Normally they have two, and they didn't have a digital one because I know you guys did away with those last year. But we still only had one poll book, which really slowed down and disenfranchised voters and made the lines extremely long. You had equipment malfunctioning many different ways. Asking people to come back and vote later. Dumping copies of voters' ballots in the back of the tabulator without running them through the tabulator first, just dumping them through the back of the machine. There were many procedural issues. In order to get to the bottom of this, we need to look into all of these items. The paper shortage is one small fraction of what transpired on election day, and I'm asking for someone to make a motion to add any issues that you had voting, not being able to use the iPad, print your ballot, run it through the tabulator. That's all I'm asking, if you can add that to the agenda.
This is
So I'm
public
gonna
comment time.
respond. I will respond and
Time
by
is up for
saying-
this.
by saying that this is more of an investigatory hearing and meeting, and that's kind of what we're doing, is investigating what happened with the paper shortage. I would invite you to send an email to us to have at our next meeting about all of these other items.
Okay.
Does that
It's
sound
time's up.
reasonable?
Thank you. We have a lot of people who need to talk, and your time is up. Thank you,
Unless you'd
sir.
like to make a
Next,
motion?
public comment.
Anybody gonna make a motion? on
No.
that? No.
This is public comment time. Name and municipality, please.
Good evening. My name is Ben Herring from Duryea.
Say that again.
Ben Herring from Duryea.
Okay.
I want to start by saying this is a reason that there's so many people outraged is not only what transpired on election day, but then the arrogance of the board to basically sit here almost with the exception of a few comments I heard, with almost no regard for what the public has to say. What happened in 2022 after what happened in 2020 with discrepancies.
Sir, this is.
I'm
this
talking
is
about the
agenda
paper.
item, paper shortage.
And
If you have some other agenda, if you have another item that's not related to that, that's for
Can
the
I
second
reclaim my
public
time?
comment.
My 3 minutes, can I reclaim that?
Is this
being
related to the
interrupted?
paper shortage?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
So we had 2 years to get it right. We didn't get it right. We had paper shortages. All the machines that showed up at precincts from a lot of folks that I've been talking to were filled to some capacity. Who checked those machines before they were delivered to the voting place? And if we blame it on the contractor, I'm pretty sure in some kind of performance work statement or some kind of contractual language, it should have stated that a county official should have to inspect those machines before they get delivered to a precinct. So by my estimation, and I'm just looking through the turnout numbers, you guys are saying there's 1,200 to 1,500 provisional ballots potentially that have to be counted. Anybody that was turned away because of the paper shortage or no paper that was there had to fill out a provisional ballot. Those numbers are not 1,200 to 1,500 if you look at all the data that we see out there. This data is available for all of us as normal people to go look at. If you look at the 62% average of the turnout for this midterm election, we right now at Luzerne County, last you guys reported on the public website, was 51%. So we have a discrepancy of, in my estimation, about 17,000 potential votes that we're not seeing out there. You guys claimed at the meeting on Friday that you're looking at maybe 1,500. That's a huge disparity. And somebody needs to explain that to the public. And then finally, in closing, the county manager resigned. I'd like to see your resignation, ma'am. And I'd also like to see the director of elections resignation as well. Thank you.
Go right ahead, sir.
David Stetler, Hunlock Township. We were one of the,
Your last name, I'm sorry.
Stetler,
Statler, okay.
we were one of the townships that ran out at 10 o'clock in the morning. We then went to emergency ballots. And at that point, failure to get any kind of answers from the Bureau of Elections went to provisional ballots. We waited for half an hour. Unfortunately, I had signed in, so I couldn't leave because I signed on the dotted line and they wouldn't allow me to come back. So people waited for half an hour, and finally, not getting an answer from the county, I said to the judge of elections, let me vote on a provisional ballot. At least I get a vote and I don't stand here all day waiting. People left the lines. I don't know if they ever came back, but I can honestly say that when we're told that, and I saw it in the press, that we got paper delivered, Hunlock never got any paper, ever. So I checked with the judge of elections because I had gone back. I went to other townships trying to get paper. They didn't have any. They had run out as well. I don't understand how we could run out of paper. Starting in, I know somebody up in Mountaintop told me he ran out of paper at 8 o'clock in the morning. How do we run out of paper in the machines at 8 o'clock in the morning? And then, of course, we blow through the emergency ballots and we do provisional. Hunlock had to make copies of the provisional ballots because they had no other thing to do. They then ran out of paper at the fire hall, so they had to get paper and toner because they ran out of toner too. So the fire hall was doing all this for us. I'm stunned. I was a Republican committee man, and I'm just stunned that we could screw this up this badly in this county. I've heard so many stories, and I saw them in the newspaper. Obviously, what was done a couple of years ago to try to fix some of these problems has made it worse. I don't know if it's the contractors, but whoever you're hiring is not doing the job. And I would like to say one thing, the poll workers did a fantastic job, and to threaten them with arrest if they left at 8 o'clock is outrageous. Just outrageous. I cannot believe that you would have done that. You've got elderly people that are there working, and they've been there since 6 o'clock in the morning, and you tell them that if they leave, there's people that got obligations. I'm just furious about this, and hearing the comments that we're restricted on what we can comment on is unbelievable.
You're not restricted. You can
You
comment.
just said we were restricted to the agenda. Don't tell me we're
You're
not
restricted to
restricted.
the agenda. and the
I know
first
that. I
public
get
comment-
that, but
and the
that doesn't
second-
make sense to
The
me.
second public comment is for
How
anything else.
many meetings do you have to have for this?
We always have it that way for our meetings. Our first public comment is always on agenda items, and our second public comment at the end is always for anything other than what's on the agenda. It's still always been the plan we've always followed for our meetings.
And did we have the agenda online someplace? Maybe I just missed.
It was, but they're also out.
Oh, I got the
there.
one here, but only when I showed up.
It's online as well. It's always online. Yeah. Okay, next public comment. Anyone else in the first row? Second row. Public comment, second row, third row. Okay, sir.
My name is Attorney Michael Costalaba. I'm from Bear Creek. My wife and I voted in Bear Creek about 3:30 in the afternoon. The machines were out of paper, but we got paper ballots. We filled them out and we were in and out very quickly. Got paper ballots, we put them in the counter machines. Everything was done very efficiently. The poll workers were excellent and guided us through the process. But we have absolutely no complaints about what happened. We were just very complimentary toward the poll workers. They were great. I would have two questions. One would be, I can understand why we need the counting machines, but why don't we just use paper ballots? And secondly, I would wonder why machines were used that required special paper. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else in the third row? Yes, go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Logan Buglio. I'm from Butler Township. I was hired by the county as a consultant to do our poll worker training. So I trained about 500 of our poll workers in October, and the county hired me to do that. I'm also the judge of elections in parts of Butler Township. And already from the few comments we've heard already and the way this meeting is run, with as to the paper and things, I don't believe that we're getting to the root cause here. Everybody could say, what their experiences were, and, in some way, shape, or form, everybody ran out of paper, and this was not a typical election. But I don't really see the purpose of having people come up here and repeating the same things. Why was there no paper? Was it not ordered? Was there not enough of it? Was there not the incorrect poundage of paper ordered? That's what we're not getting to here. So I'd like to see an answer to that. Anybody have anything for me?
That's what's on our agenda, but we have to go through public comment first before we can get to
So we're
that.
going to get a reason?
We're going to talk about that
Yeah, but-
after we go through public comment.
Okay, but we will get a reason as to
Well,
why?
we're gonna investigate. That's what this whole meeting is for.
So, again, we can't get into the discussion amongst the board members until we complete the public comment.
All right, well, very good. I'd just like to see an answer to that rather than everybody's story. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, any other public comment in the, go ahead, right ahead. Name and municipality, please.
How are you? My name's Robin Maderas. I'm actually from Lackawanna County.
Excuse me. If
Well,
you-
this affects us.
No,
The 108th
I'm
is.
sorry, but I don't know that, we usually only take voters, public comments from Luzerne County. Do you own property in Luzerne County?
I don't. I actually work throughout all of the counties, but I also, the
Okay, I'm going
108th
to check with our
affects us,
solicitor.
and
I'm
so
just
does the
gonna pause.
118th.
I'm going to pause your time for a second,
Okay,
and I'm going to check with the guidance from our solicitor. Is this Mr. Skavitsky today?
Yes, it
tonight?
is.
Okay, so my question is, in the past, we've only allowed public comment from those who are Luzerne County residents. And this
It affects
public
my county,
commenter
so-
is from Lackawanna County.
Candidly, I don't really see the issue with the person making a comment. But if that's been the past practice of the board, I mean, obviously, I would defer to the board's discretion as to how you wish to proceed.
Right,
So-
this
Can
has
we
been the
just let-
policy
can
of
we
the
just
board,
let
and
it
I'm just, this is my thoughts, board to the other board members. If we allow an exception this time, are we going to have to allow exception now going forward in all of our future meetings that we allow anybody from any county to speak at our meetings? I know the Luzerne County Council does not allow.
can I
someone-
say one thing? This is
No,
an issue
excuse
that
me,
affects
we're-
us.
Wait, we're just talking right here amongst ourselves. So Luzerne County Council does not allow, we haven't allowed. So if we allow now, somebody down the road will say, well, you allowed the last meeting. So I'm going to open it up to discussion amongst the board members to decide.
We have candidates on the ballot that cross between Luzerne and Lackawanna County.
Thank you.
We have Marty Flynn, we have James May.
Yes.
We have people that they're, this gerrymandering thing did a number, but
I don't think it's Jeremy, but go ahead.
they changed.
Could I just
they
interject for
changed
1 second?
Yes,
And only because, obviously, where I was going to go with this, if the board's past practice has been, and consistent with the Sunshine Act, that you only have to allow folks within our county to speak, and that has been the past practice of the board, then you can act accordingly, consistent with that past practice and per the Sunshine Act, and do
But we
not have
certainly
to
never
open up.
had this done
excuse me,
before, so.
I can't hear him.
Well, again, I'm just speaking relative to the Sunshine Act and relative to past practice, but per the Sunshine Act, the requirement of the board is to allow county residents to speak and not go beyond that. And so certainly if the position of the board in the past has been and consistent with the Sunshine Act to allow only county residents to speak, I would advise remaining consistent with that relative to this meeting. So if someone identifies themselves as this individual has, as not being a resident of the county, then I believe that you would be well within your purview to prohibit that public comment as it goes beyond the requirements of the Sunshine Act.
And personally, I feel very strongly that we should stick to what our process has been, that we stay with only those who are Luzerne County residents. We have, our process has allowed for those who are not residents but own property within Luzerne County. We have had speakers, and you probably know who that is. It's only been one person that I've known in the 1.5 years that I've been on the board, and we've been very consistent with that policy.
Can I have a vote on this?
No,
Because it reflects
excuse me, you
on
don't, you're
Lackawanna
not on the
County.
board, so you don't get a vote. This is
No,
between the
she's
board.
asking us to vote on
Who's the
it.
solicitor?
And I personally, I agree with that.
Attorney
because-
Skibitsky.
Because personally, I agree with the vote, because personally, I think that everybody should have their say,
Thank you.
especially if it affects, we're giving them 3 minutes. For Pete's sake, we're wasting more time talking about whether somebody should speak.
So I guess we're going to make. Okay, so we'll vote on this. Is there a motion?
Motion to let everyone speak at this meeting. How about that?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Mangan,
Yes.
Mr. Schramm,
Yes.
Ms. Cerniak,
Yes.
Ms. Fusaro,
Yes.
Ms. Williams, yes. The motion passes unanimously. Go ahead. Ms. Madera, I'm going to start where you left off. You have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Go ahead.
Absolutely. These are actually questions that the public want answered that pertain to this voting. When will the poll books be reconciliated, and when will that happen? How many voter-created emergency ballots were counted? What was the process to transfer voter-created emergency ballots from the polling place to the Board of Elections? Does the Board of Elections have a written policy and procedures in place to address the handling of voters created in emergency ballots? And how did you know that you needed the paper ballots, and where were they to be delivered? How many precincts and which precincts called on election day and said that they were out of paper? What was the procedure for a poll that ran out of paper? Was there any direction given? If so, who specifically instructed workers on what to do? Who was in charge of ordering the paper for the Board of Elections? Who was in charge of delivering the paper to the precincts throughout the day? Were enough ballots ordered for every registered voter at every precinct in the county? As reported in the media, particularly the Philadelphia Inquirer, are you concerned that non-election officials were told by elections officials to pick up paper from local office supply stores in order to support certain precincts? Can you guarantee the accuracy of the report this far? And can you guarantee the vote is recorded thus far reflects the will of the people of Luzerne County? Do you agree that there was a lack of training, negligence, and incompetence exhibited throughout the buildup to election day and on election day, but by both the Luzerne County Bureau of Elections and the poll workers throughout the county? I've worked elections for my whole life, and never once have I seen anything like this. And there's certainly no way to even train your poll workers for this incompetence that happens. And I hope we get this rectified, that's for sure. Thank you.
Next public comment. Anyone else in this room?
Walt Koshan from Dallas Township. I have a statement to read. This meeting was advertised as a special meeting to focus on the shortage of paper in last week's election, but this meeting is about much more than that. It's we the people holding you responsible and accountable for the gross mishandlings of last week's election that involved more than a paper shortage. And God bless that man for anchoring that third vote that allowed this woman to speak here tonight. We know how the rest of you would have voted had he not. Election day is not over. There's absolutely no way that Luzerne County's midterm election results can be certified. You must take responsibility and be accountable to each and every voter in this county, even the voters that were able to cast a vote, as we're all suffering the consequences of inaccurate election results. There's no other acceptable choice than to have a redo of the election with integrity. If necessary, Lackawanna County can show you what to do, because of your mishandling of our elections has gone from bad to worse. Plain and simple, if someone cannot handle the simple tasks of ensuring polling places have sufficient and proper paper, or in 2021, ensuring all the flash drives are in the vote tally, or in 2020, with the proofreading of the ballots before incurring over $100,000 in additional printing costs, they don't belong anywhere in the election workforce or in election management. To not ensure the integrity of the election as a priority, when this county has had several years of mishandling elections, is unconscionable. It is becoming more apparent that not following procedures is intentionally sabotaging the election. We're sick of hearing, oops, we made a mistake, and not being liable for those failures. No more. If more attention was focused on ensuring election integrity rather than placing drop boxes, which have already been subject to ballot harvesting, the county would not be in this mess. Plain and simple. The cost of this negligence, including the overtime for working to 10 p.m. and using personnel such as constables and police to deliver paper, should not come out of the pockets of taxpayers or the political candidates. Everyone has a right to expect a fair election, which you have not provided. Even after numerous forewarnings, ignoring the recommendation of the council's election inquiry committee is unacceptable. We're tired of your irresponsibility in creating more disenfranchised voters. Without calling names or incorrectly labeling citizens as election deniers, you must be accountable, responsible, and transparent to all Luzerne County voters. We've had enough of the inexcusable incompetence throughout the election board, bureau, and voter registration. Your time to act responsibly to all voters in Luzerne County is now. You must sincerely work to restore public trust, which is nearly at this point insurmountable.
Your time is
With
up.
the problem that you created.
Wrap it
You
up.
must hold a redo of the election
Thank
in
you very
Luzerne
much,
County
sir.
with
Thank
integrity.
you. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room here that would like to speak before we move to the outer room? Okay, that was Mr. Kochan, and he was signed in as the first person out there. So if you could open up the door, and the first person is Dennis Shovlin. If you could tell Dennis Shovlin to come in. No Dennis Shovlin? How about Vivian?
He's coming,
Okay.
and can you give the second person that's ready, so they're ready?
The next one is Vivian Kreidler-Lacina. If she could be ready at the door. Vivian Kreidler-Lacina. Go ahead, Mr. Shovlin.
My name's Dennis Shovlin. I'm presently a resident of Dallas Township. I have been a resident in Dallas Borough and Harvey's Lake Borough in the past. And I voted in each of those districts. I'm here to tell you, if I'm going to be restricted to only talking about the lack of paper, I would like to yield my 3 minutes to another property owner in Luzerne County.
Okay, or you could choose to use the other public comment for your other items. We have a public comment at the end for non-agenda items.
Do I do that now or?
It's after we have a public comment for agenda items. We have our meeting, which is just on the one agenda item. Then we have a public comment for non-agenda items. So you could
Okay.
choose to speak then on non-agenda items.
Yes,
You'd like to do that?
yes.
Okay, okay. We can-
Now or later?
Later.
Later.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just note that you want to do it
I would
on.
I'd like to name the person I'd yield my 3 minutes. to-
They can get 3 minutes themselves, sure. We have a whole list of people.
I mean, I would like to yield my 3 minutes to their 3 minutes.
No, they only one comment time per person.
Nice try. Good try. Well, I wanted you to publicly deny that.
Well, I mentioned earlier, it's one comment time per person, 1 3-minute comment time per person. Vivian Kreidler Lucina. And then Joanna Martin will be next. If Joanna Martin could please be at the door.
Hi, my name is Vivian Kreidler Lucina from Nescapeck Township. Concerning the election on November 8th, 2022. We, in Nescapeck Township, I was what they call a poll greeter outside. I met many people coming and going. By 10 a.m. now, polls opened at 7. I was there at 7:05. I voted, went outside. By 10 o'clock, there was a gentleman that pulled up, opened his trunk and pulled out 3 reams of paper about that thick, maybe 50 sheets in each paper. That was at 10 o'clock. By 4 p.m., we had already serviced 414 votes, I believe it was. So that paper was now down, gone, history. I left by 6 o'clock because of the lighting outside, so I couldn't stay till 10. People were aware of that. There was that issue. There was other issues where people came out, they weren't allowed to vote. Their names didn't show up from the electronic ballots that were in May to November's ballots in the poll books. So I gave them, they were on the phone trying to get a hold of Wilkes-Barre. Nobody's answering the phone. So I gave them the number that I had through text messages and emails to call and lodge a complaint. Now, there was an issue, the emergency ballot, I'm sure you are all aware of the emergency paper ballots. The act that, should have been used and followed, it wasn't. I don't know why between Randy Robertson, Beth McBride, Cook, and Denise Williams. I'm sorry, they're the 4 that are in charge that got together. You knew what the elections were going to be like. This was a big election for Pennsylvania, and you made sure there wasn't enough paper. It's unreal. So I'm requesting that Denise Williams, Emily Cook, I believe it is, Beth McBride, and Randy Robinson resign effective immediately, because you were in charge of it. You did not do your job. If you don't resign, we will start a petition to have you removed.
Good job.
I'd just like to say for the record, I can't do anything on the board without the approval of all the board
I
members.
was gonna say that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that won't be a problem.
No, I mean, we work as a unit. The board works as a whole. I can't make any decisions on my own on the board. So if we do any decisions, we have to vote on them. And the board does not get involved with the daily activities of the Bureau, meaning purchasing paper or securing paper. We're a board that oversees the Bureau of Elections. So I don't know that everybody here has an understanding of how the board operates in relation to the Bureau. Objection, point of order.
It's in the statutes. It's in the state.
Point of order, you're out of line. Point of order, I'll ask you to leave. I'll ask you to be removed. This is public comment time, and you can have your public comment time if you like, but I already went through this whole room and you didn't raise your hand. So we will go to the, is this Joanna Martin?
Yes.
Okay,
my
go
name is
ahead.
Joanna Martin, and I was judge of elections for West Pittston, Ward 2. As a first-time judge of election, I was appalled, disheartened, and embarrassed on election day. Tell me how we ran out of paper for the polls. Someone definitely failed to do their job. We were able, through no help from repeated phone calls through the Bureau, we were able to last until 3 p.m. And that was only with the help of our other wards that were located in the same building. I am appalled that we can't talk about anything else other than that, because believe me, you have many problems, many problems. I was told when I had my meager 1-hour training, which was very insufficient and not clear at all, that there would be paper in each machine, extra paper, not the paper that were in the slots, but extra paper. We got there and we opened the machines, and we were lucky we made it to 3 because we were busy. We went to use provisional ballot, we went to use paper ballots, and thank goodness we did get some paper at 4:30 in the afternoon, which was inadequate, to say the least. I can't tell you the amount because it was handed to one of my poll workers because I was working on a provisional ballot. I'm completely disgusted with the whole scenario. You need to stop thinking of your self-importance and start doing your job correctly, or resign. Thank you.
Okay, the next I'll say the next two, Bob Bolas from Scranton and Lisa Longo. Bob Bolas.
I do want to make a statement. If you have made a comment at the beginning, but you have more to add because it was not addressed because of the paper in the beginning, you can make a comment again at the end, just so you're aware. You are able to make that comment again at the end, okay?
3 minutes, right?
Yes, go right ahead. State your name and your municipality.
Bob Wallace, Scranton, Pennsylvania, property owner and company owner here in Luzerne County. I cannot put in words the feeling I have of the incompetence of this board that made us the laughing stock of the country, not just locally. The incompetence is, you can't even put it in words, that you people allowed this to happen. Elderly people turned away because you didn't have paper. Why didn't somebody go over to Sam's Club and buy several cases of toilet paper? Would have made it easy. You just roll it out and sign your name. I don't know how you people feel about it, but as a company in this community, I can only tell you one thing. First of all, I like to see your resignations. And last of all, I like to see a revote done to show the competency is in place that it needs to be. We as Americans have rights, and you took them away from us by being incompetent. Stand up and be responsible for your actions and do the right thing. Walk away because you didn't do your job and you made us all fools, not just you people. You made everybody here damn fools in America. Watch the news channels and then pat yourselves on the back that you turned people away. You had no planning. I never saw, if we did this in our companies, the transportation industry, we'd shut down. If we didn't know how to put a driver in the truck or put freight on a trailer or take it to a store. What you did is gross because you were put here to represent everybody here. Everybody in this community, and you failed. If you were in a classroom, you failed. Take responsibility, and I mean seriously, do the right thing and get the hell out of this smoot room, resign and go home. You don't belong here. Thank you.
Lisa Longo. And next, Charles West after Lisa Longo. State your name and your municipality, please.
Lisa Longo, and I'm here as the campaign manager for Yesenia Rodriguez for the Pennsylvania State House in the 116th District. On election day, we were made aware of issues with regard to a paper shortage at several of our polling locations.
We immediately sent volunteers to these locations to ascertain the scope of the issue. We did our best to track the number of voters who might have been unable to vote due to these issues. At most, there may have been a handful of voters who were asked to return later. At no time were we made aware of any situation where the number of voters could have impacted the outcome of the election. I have since reviewed the data at the precinct level and see no anomalies which would point to any significant change in the voter turnout or outcome. I am a former CPA, forensic auditor, and data analyst. I am trained to look at these numbers. It is my understanding that there have been issues in the past in Luzerne County, and the election board went forward with certification because there was no proof the issues had a significant impact that would change the outcome of the election. In fact, I can find no instance where Luzerne County has not certified the election results. It is clear this election is done. The results are in and the voters voted. Now it is time for you to do your job and certify the results. Yes, there were issues, but to be clear, they were not significant, nor is there any documentation they would change the outcome of the election. Certify the election and then deal with the issues that are undermining voter confidence, including an investigation, and review the Department of State guidelines. Let's be clear, 10 of the 11 members of council are Republicans. Is the allegation being made that they are so incompetent they tried to turn this election so Democrats would win? That is absurd. Count every vote, certify the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Charles West and then Karen Rose. State your name and municipality, please.
Good evening. I'm Charles West from Harvey's Lake Borough. I am the elected constable. I want to thank the board for putting myself, all the constables, and all the voting personnel throughout the county at a disadvantage. Things could have been really hairy if the people wanted to create a ruckus. I don't know who was giving the orders down at the Penn Place. However, when you're told that 1 minute to scan the paperwork, the next minute not to scan the paperwork, when you're told to make copies, no, don't make copies, who's running the circus is my question. I labeled it Papergate 2022 because that's what it is. My $195 is pennies to sit and get screamed at by people coming in, because why are you putting those in the back of the tabulator? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I sat alongside that tabulator all day just so people would know that nothing was being shady, because of course in Luzerne County, we're known to be shady. I think that the members of this board need to resign immediately, and along with whoever's running the elections, the election board. Thank you.
We'll have Karen Rose and then Leanne Bush. Karen Rose and then Leanne Bush. Go ahead, right up to the podium there. State your name and your municipality, please.
Karen Rose, Harvey's Lake, and I just have one question. How was my vote counted? I voted on Tuesday at Harvey's Lake building, Borough building, on a piece of copy paper with a pen as they ran out of paper at 9 o'clock. How was my vote counted? It was not fed into the machine as it was jammed, and the copy paper was not the correct weight for the voting machine. So exactly how was my vote counted? I went to the Borough building on Thursday and the tally sheets were all zeros. Okay. And then on the, I think it's a state site, it said that there were 619 voters at Harvey's Lake.
I was voter 816. So how was my vote counted?
Leanne Bush and then Therese Morrison.
Leanne Bush, Sugarloaf Township. What went on election day was criminal. And I know that because I worked the poll from morning till night. Caused by the incompetence and lack of managerial skills, or perhaps by design, by the Election Bureau and board. I'm not going to go into the fraudulent acts because I already swore my affidavit to the corruption. And it's no secret because we hit the national news. You've unleashed a new breed of conservatives that are relentless and vigilant in our cause. We will not rest until all involved in this corruption are removed. Williams needs to resign tonight. McBride needs to be fired, and if Pecora won't fire her, Pecora needs to be replaced also. This is ridiculous what happened here. I'm sure we had enough time and you put enough effort into having the drop boxes put in place. And why did we not run out of mail-in ballots? Only paper for the machines. Shame on all of you.
Therese Morrison and then Gary Bush. Gary Bush is next. State your name and your municipality, please.
Teresa Morrison, Freeland. I was the judge of elections for the Freeland Borough. You've heard all of it before. We ran out of paper at 8:30, but with text messages coming back and forth to us, we did not use emergency ballots. We did not use provisional ballots. We were told to get paper to copy it. We tried it in the voting machine in the printer. It did not jam like the heavier paper does. It registered it. We also ran it through the tabulator. It did not reject it out of the tabulator. It counted every vote. We had 2 machines down by 8:30. We usually vote around 400, 386, 400 in an election. We voted 755 voters. We borrowed 2 reams of paper from the borough, which closed at 5 o'clock. We stayed until 10 o'clock. We had approximately 6 to 8 people that came between 8 and 10. There was no way that we rejected any voter that came to Freeland. Nobody walked out of there that didn't vote. So the easy solution was just to get reams of regular copy paper. And I don't know, they said that there was a text message sent out that we couldn't use it. I never received that message. But everything worked. We wound up with 755 votes, 755 in the tabulator. Every vote was counted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where is it?
Freeland.
Freeland.
Gary Bush and then Will Alvarez. Gary Bush. State your name and municipality, please.
Gary Bush, Sugarloaf Township. I've been before this board many times to bring integrity to our elections, to bring integrity to our county. You've managed to disenchant everybody, every voter in this county. I can't say enough. It's just a big embarrassment to our county and to our community. We worked very hard to bring people out and we did our job. People came out in droves, but now you've turned your back on them again. I'm only going to say one thing. I expect Ms. McBride, Ms. Williams, and if Ms. Pecora doesn't want to do her job, she can go to either step down or be fired.
We'll have Will Alvarez and then Pete Restaino. Will Alvarez and then Pete Restaino. Will Alvarez or Pete Restaino, either one. State your name and municipality, please.
Peter Restaino from Jackson Township. We're going to get to accountability for what we just witnessed last week. We need to get some answers to the following questions. Whose responsibility is it to order the ballots? Whose duty is it to verify someone ordered those ballots? Let's be clear, a special grade of paper was not the problem last week. Whose job is it to verify all 100% of voting machines are 100% verified, ready on election day? Foster Township, Judge of Elections, Carol Lenahan, in this issue of the paper the other day, said her polling place had 204 ballots provided for their location. They were out of them by 9:30 a.m. By the end of the day, 600 people had voted. They managed, I guess, to get provisional ballots. It's hard to believe that someone with such a large balance shortfall wasn't intentional or just incompetence, because that's a shortfall of 400 ballots. With some 40 polling places, 35 to 40, that we've heard about, that out of the 110 or so, as I understand it, were approximately 1/3 of all the locations with insufficient quantity of ballots or machine mishaps. It's without question only explained by one of two circumstances, either extraordinary ineptitude or incompetence and or corruption of the process. There's no acceptable answers when such a high percentage of polling locations run out of ballots, especially since many reported problems very early in the morning. The county electorate deserves better. The Board of Elections, Ms. Williams, Ms. McBride, and anybody involved in the process of making sure that we had safe, clean elections last week should resign. Lastly, my wife and I took the time to bring some friends to vote this year that haven't voted, never vote in midterm elections. They wanted to vote this year because they felt moved by the issues. One, a retired VA doctor, the other, a 96-year-old World War II vet that hasn't voted in midterms. They haven't voted in midterms for 20, 30 years. Both were disgusted with what they saw with these ballots and voting problems. Please don't disenfranchise anyone, let alone our seniors, and certainly those who have served in the greatest generation as the World War II vet that I just described. That's all I have.
Thank you. Will Alvarez and Desiree Edwards. Will Alvarez, Desiree Edwards, or Brian Dwyer? If we could have Will Alvarez, Desiree Edwards, Brian Dwyer, and Ian Kennedy line up outside the door so they're ready to come in as soon as the next person is done. Okay, state your name and municipality, please.
Hi, my name is Desiree Edwards, and I'm from Sawyersville. I had a situation on election day which sent me to Penn Place. because no one was answering the phones. When I went to Penn Place, I noticed sleeves of stacked paper piled against the walls of Penn Place, piled high, where you first go in and you have to be through security. So I'm just curious, what was all that, those sleeves and stacks of copy paper in the vestibule when you first get to Penn Place? I mean, the walls were, it was lining the walls, and that's it.
Okay, so the paper that was lining the walls that you saw was a separate weight, a different weight of paper than the machines require. And we were getting ready to send that paper out as a solution to the problem. The thing is, we didn't want those machines to jam. I don't want this to be a two-way conversation. I'm just letting you know that those were getting ready to go out the door. And as those were getting ready to go out the door to all the polling places, we were supplied with the correct weight of paper. So that's what happened. And that's why that paper was there. That was ready to go out the door.
Okay,
The
well,
sheriffs
thank
were
you.
gonna
I
bring it back.
appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay, Will Alvarez, Brian Dwyer, Ian Kennedy. State your name and your municipality, please.
My name is Ian Kennedy. I live in Dallas Township. But I was a poll worker for Nanacoke Ward 2 on election day as a volunteer. And I know specifically this agenda items, and at the end of this, we'll be able to speak on other issues of public comment. So as regarding the paper, we did run out of paper. And the minority inspector at that polling location went out and grabbed paper from his car that wasn't paper that was given to him by a county official. So I just thought that was odd. And his paper was in multiple machines that were empty. And that paper was used to count ballots. So I don't know like where that paper came from or what he did with it or whatever. Yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say right now, but I will be back in to speak a second time on more issues that I saw at that polling location and yeah, that need to be addressed. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Will Alvarez, I'll say that name one more time. Maybe he left. Brian Dwyer or Marianne Potsko. Go ahead and go to the podium, state your name and your municipality.
My name is Brian Dwyer from Larksville Ward 2. I'm the duly sworn in and elected constable of that ward. I have my comments, 2 copies. I'd like to submit them for the record because I probably won't make the time. So. Everything relates to the paper issue in one way or another. It is my educated opinion that Luzerne County government as a whole, Luzerne County Council, the Luzerne County Board of Elections, and the Luzerne County Bureau of Elections cannot in any means of good faith to the public and the citizens of Luzerne County certify the results of the election held in Luzerne County on the 8th of November, 2022. There needs to be a competent investigation into what transpired on election day in this county, and it needs to be conducted by agencies outside of this county. You have destroyed the trust of the residents of Luzerne County in this election and any other election held by Luzerne County from this day forward. Many voters in Larksville Ward 2 made the statements, quote, "I guess my vote doesn't count," or to "How do I know for sure my vote will be counted?" or "This is a joke. It's the same thing year after year. I will never vote again." You can only start to rebuild the trust in voting of the residents of Luzerne County that you destroyed by having a competent investigation conducted by a competent outside state or federal agency into what went wrong on election day, November 2022, and identifying and charging those who should be held responsible for those events, actions, or inactions. As to the events of election day, November 8th, 2022 in Larksville Ward 2, I am the duly elected and sworn in Pennsylvania State Constable from Larksville Ward 2. I was at the Larksville Ward 2 polling place from 6:30 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. All of my statements are firsthand accounts of what I saw actually happen at the Larksville Ward 2 polling place on election day. Voters in Luzerne County, Larksville Ward 2 were disenfranchised on that day. Eligible voters did not get a legitimate chance to vote in the election, that they were denied the right to vote for the following reasons. Electronic voting machines that were inop at the opening of the polls for over 2 hours. This is the third election cycle in a row that there has been an issue with non-working electronic voting machines at this polling place. Electronic voting machines that were then made operable, but could not be used because they were out of the required printer paper to run them. The fact that the polling place ran out of emergency and provisional ballots also counts too. At various times during election day, any combination of the above stated 4 reasons, and at some point during the election day, all of the above stated reasons did occur. Again, Luzerne County cannot certify this election. We turned away, as an accurate estimate, some 50 voters when we had no operating machines and no printer paper and no paper ballots. In our best estimate, only about 20 of those citizens came back to vote. Some of those turned away voters had been turned away in the morning when the voting machines were inoperable because they had to go to work. They then heard from other members of the community that the voting machines were working, only to come and find out they couldn't use them because they were out of printer paper.
Mr. Dwyer, your time's up. Thank you.
All right, whatever.
Denise, I'd like to interrupt.
We have 3, I'm going to give you the next 3, Mary Ann Potsko, Raymond Connell, and Bob McMillan.
Mary Ann Potsko, Hanover Township. You started this meeting by patting yourselves on the back or giving credit to people that ran around looking for paper, and it should have never happened. I don't see how you could have stood here and said that they deserve a pat on the back. You took people's rights away. You took their right to vote away. There's no reason that should have never, ever happened. This is an agenda item, is the possible board vote to request an investigation by the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office regarding a printer paper shortage. Are you serious? What happened on election day? That should have never, ever happened. And the people of Luzerne County deserve answers as to why it happened and the ramifications of this disgraceful occurrence. Yes, I believe an investigation is warranted and justified. Turning people away from the polls, asking them to come back, or whatever this silly nonsense was, is actually voter suppression. Americans did not die for this country, whether we're Democrat or independent. We have the right to vote. That's the only thing we have the right to do. You cannot take that away from an American. The only solution to this fiasco is a new election with paper ballots and get rid of these electronics.
Raymond Connell, Bob McMillan, Arnold Hardman. Raymond Connell. Raymond Connell, Bob McMillan, or Arnold Hardman? Cannell, Raymond Cannell. State your name and municipality, please.
My name's Raymond Cannell. My municipality's Exeter Borough. I'm here tonight because, number one, I'm disenfranchised on every primary because I'm an independent. But number two, being a veteran and watching this paper shortage happen is appalling. You denied us our rights to vote. But most importantly, you have brought to point a huge failure on basic logistics. If you have 390,000 registered voters, you should have 470,000 pieces of paper. There are machines that malfunction. There are people that make errors and damage stuff before it runs through a scanner.
So the people that are actually at fault, which I'm not sure if it's the board here or the actual election employees, but there should have been enough paper for 110% of every registered voter in that precinct on site. When we go into combat, we carry a combat load plus 60%. Why wasn't there a 10% overage minimum at every site? Whoever was responsible for that should, number one, be held accountable. And number two, this whole election process should be decertified and they should redo the entire election. I have voted in 2 different states in my life, 38 years of voting, with the exception of some of the irregularities I've seen over the past several elections here. This is the first time I have ever felt my government, my elected officials and my appointed officials denied me my basic right to vote. This election needs to be terminated now and rescheduled, and it needs to be done in person 100% with voter ID. Amen.
Bob McMillan. And next will, after Bob McMillan, will be Arnold Hartman. If he could be at the door, please. Go ahead, state your name and
Bob
municipality.
McMillan, Union Township. Twice I was turned away from voting. My constitutional rights were violated twice. Later on that night, many hours later, I received a text message that I was now allowed to vote. I didn't know the election department would allow me to vote. That's outrageous. The second issue is, how can you not be telling us what happened? This was clearly an extraordinary occurrence. You should have 100 reports in front of you. You should be able to tell us every single detail of what went wrong with the paper. We shouldn't be here explaining things to you. You should be telling us.
Andrew Hardman. And then after Andrew Hardman, if we could have Kathy Monick and Bridget Whitesell at the door. State your name and your municipality, please.
Harvey's Lake Borough. I'll give you my name at the end.
I'm sorry, what's your name?
I'll give you my name at the end.
We asked for it in the beginning, is it Mr. Hardman?
Yes,
Arnold. And what was your municipality?
Harvey's Lake.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll be brief. When I was a little boy, my mother had a vote that wasn't counted. And I remember in Brooklyn growing up, she got on a train with us and took me down to Manhattan, and all night until we got a judge to hear it, and that vote was reinstated. From that day forward, I said, every single vote is important. And I believe that every single vote is important. That's why there are a lot of people waiting in the rotunda right now who believe that same thing. At Harvey's Lake Borough, there was no paper. I said I would go get paper. They said it's special paper, you can't do that. And then when I came back later to vote, the ballot box that they were using, the paper that they were putting in, was overstuffed. They couldn't even get any more in there. Now that tells me that that integrity of that vote is not secure. So that bothered me a lot also. Now, the paper that they were using there was supposedly special. And I found out later that it was not special. So I don't know if people are not trained or just incompetent or what. But I think that you people here are responsible for that. And something has to be done. And again, this is all being said for one reason, because I said I didn't want to give my name at the beginning, only because I wanted to say that my name is not important. It's we the people. That's who's talking now.
Okay, we'll have Kathy Monick, and then next will be Bridget Whitesell and Tammy Hoover. State your name and municipality, please.
My name is Kathy Monick. Hunlock Creek is my municipality. And I would just like to say something. 3 days before our election here, I heard on the national news that Luzerne County was the county to watch in Pennsylvania. And I know that we live in the bellwether county of Pennsylvania. We pick presidents. And I think that that was a lot of the reason why things that happened here. I went 4 times to vote. I had no paper. I was offered a provisional ballot. I didn't feel like that would be a fair election process. If I was going to be offered a provisional ballot, then everybody else in the state of Pennsylvania should have been offered a provisional ballot, not just us in Luzerne County. And it's despicable. And I also have to say that I think it was planned. I think you all knew how much paper you needed, what a total disaster our vote was in Luzerne County, because you're all afraid of our voices here in Luzerne County, you and the rest of this country. And I think it's despicable. And moving on, I want to say that I don't think that any one of you have the even near right to give a resignation, because I'll tell you what, if I ever presented myself at my job the way all of you do, at the taxpayer's expense, I would have walked in the next day with locked doors and my desk emptied out in a box in the parking lot. And that's what should have happened here.
Bridget Whitesell. And then next will be Tammy Hoover and Jean Babula. State your name and municipality, please.
My name is Bridget Whitesell, Hunlock Creek. I'd just like to say that I am embarrassed beyond words at what occurred in Luzerne County. It's unfathomable that this would happen ever. There's no excuse. It's not acceptable. I don't think resignation should even be considered. You know what happens to people that don't do their jobs? They get terminated. They get fired. Okay? I went at 4 o'clock, rushed home from my job to get to my polling place to be told there's no paper. You're welcome to do a provisional ballot. I said, well, is there paper on the way? Oh, yes, there is. We'll have paper, we hope, later. I'll be back later. I revisited my polling place at 9 p.m. Again, was told there is no paper. So at that point, because I felt I deserved the right to vote in Luzerne County, be it on a provisional ballot or in a ballot box, which is the right way. If everyone was given a provisional ballot, it would be a fair election. I was denied my civil liberties, my civil rights to vote in Luzerne County, and it is deplorable. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Tammy Hoover, and then next will be Jean Babula and Ian. I think Ian Kennedy already went. I'm sorry. Tammy Hoover, then Jean Babula and Tammy Cannell. State your name and municipality.
My name is Tammy Hoover. I was a poll worker at the 3rd Ward in Larksville. Got there at 6 a.m. We had 3 machines we had to put together. One was broke, and the other 2 we were able to put together had wrong dates on it, so we had to kind of reprogram it. By 8:30, we were out of paper in the first machine. By 9:30, we were out of paper in the second machine. Good thing the third machine was not working, because we were able to take that paper so people could vote. By 9:30, we had less than 50 voters and we were out of paper. How does that happen? How are these machines sealed, shipped to polling locations, empty, if it wasn't on purpose? You need to resign.
Jean Babula and Tammy Cannell, and then David Haig. Jean Babula? Okay, right to the podium, state your name and municipality, please.
My name is Gene Babula. I'm from Hazelton. And obviously in the confounds of your nice little place here, you don't hear the pissed off people that are outside. You hear them, they don't. I had no problem voting. What I had a problem with was the workers and their attitudes. When I even asked about, is there paper? And I had an attitude that the lady turned around and looked at me and could have turned me to stone. I don't know if anyone else ran into that problem, but what I would like to just say is with all of this, every one of you on the board should be gone faster than yesterday. You knew how much paper you should have. You knew the supplies you should have. Who took inventory? Anybody? No one's answering. Why are we all up here asking these questions when you should be answering us without us even asking? And that's what a lot of people want to know. Okay, do you hear that out there? Anybody answer me, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand this because you would say the same thing. People are up to here with all the corruption in this county. This just feeds the fire of corruption. Okay, Hazelton, believe me, I know it's loaded with it up there. Luzerne County, where do you start with that? Okay, I don't think it's second to Lackawanna. I think we're above Lackawanna when it comes to corruption. And I think I said everything I need to say, and that's that.
Thank you. Tammy Cannell, or David Haig and Gregory Wilovich. Tammy, just state your name and municipality.
Tammy Cannell from Exeter Borough. And I first would like to say, as a former judge of elections, with the inconsistencies and irregularities that I saw the day of elections when I went to go vote, is very shameful and very incorrect in the processes as to how everything was handled with the paper shortage, not only because of the paper being short, but provisional ballots not being secured. Not only were these provisional ballots not secured, there was no privacy in voting whatsoever. I saw my neighbor to the right of me and the neighbor to the left of me's ballots and knew exactly who they voted for. I thought we were supposed to be a private voting and having a secure vote. That is my problem with the election, this past election. But in regard that because of the paper, but my biggest complaint because of the irregularities that happened, my vote did not count because my vote was one of those provisional ballots. My vote had no meaning whatsoever that day. Thank you.
David Haig and then Gregory Wilovich.
You have to check on the privacy.
State your name and municipality, please.
Sure. Good evening. My name is David Haig from Harvey's Lake. I voted around 10 a.m. on election day. I was told by a poll worker that I could not vote by voting machine as typically would be the case, but rather I had to vote by paper. My wife reported to me that she also had to vote by paper at about 6 p.m. There were times when prior to when I voted and when I deposited my vote that the election box was unattended. It's unfortunate that Luzerne County continues to be recognized for corruption and incompetence. This need not be the case. It must not continue to be the case, and the full value of each vote must fervently be protected by those entrusted to protect this important right. So my questions echo those of citizens before me. How can we guarantee that every vote counted? Who failed to perform their duties? What consequences will they face? What is being done to ensure this won't happen again? Every legal vote should count in every election, every time, and this is wholly unacceptable. You know how many registered voters there are in each precinct. Calculating how much paper is necessary to vote should not be difficult. However, the true issue at hand is not paper, as this agenda emphasizes, rather it's the matter of public trust. In the words of Samuel Adams, let each citizen remember at the moment he's offering his vote that he is executing one of the most solemn trusts in human society for which he's accountable to God and his country. Many people, like citizens with busy work schedules, public service obligations, childcare responsibilities, and disabilities, or other factors limiting their time, were potentially or actually deprived of a voice to express the solemn and important trust. This is unacceptable. This must never happen again, and all legal votes should always count every time, period.
Thank you. Gregory Wilovich? State your name and municipality, please. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Gregory S. Wilovich Jr., Hanover Township. The primary job of the Board of Elections and the Bureau of Elections is to run free, fair elections. I don't know if we've done either of those things. This is a crucial time in our country. We have so many things on the line, so many issues. There's 220,000 registered voters in Luzerne County. Each and every one of them deserve a voice. We spent how many hours? I sat in that chair. We talked about an election integrity grant to buy a machine for mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots. What about the people who vote in person? Couldn't we have used some of that money to buy paper, maybe, for the machines? We spent so much time and energy voting on Dominion voting machines how many years ago when Manager Pedri was here for paper trail. Paper trail. What in that word? One of those two words is one thing we did not have on election day at over 30 polling places. Unacceptable. I cannot accept that. I don't think any voter in this county can accept that. We were here for a reason. We are here to provide free, fair elections. And I am so sorry to say that that was not done in one of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania on election day. The people deserve better. They deserve fair, accessible elections. My grandfather would walk to the polls with his walker. If he was turned around on that day, he would not return because he spent all of his energy going to the polls on election day. If he was turned around, that was not fair. It's not fair to anyone. Not a single voter in this county was turned around on election day. We deserve better. And I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anybody else from the list from outside. If you could open the door, if there's anybody else that I missed from outside, then we're going to move to the Zoom platform where we have some hands raised. Is there anybody else from the outside room who'd like to speak? Please come in. Otherwise, we're going to move to the Zoom platform. Nobody else from the outside room? Hey, now, do we have people coming? Okay, I'll give one more minute for anybody from the outside room to come in and to speak. If not, we're going to move to the Zoom platform. No? Okay, just shut the door then so that we can hear. Okay, so we're going to go to the Zoom platform, and the first will be, I see a hand raised, and that is Dunder Mifflin. Please state your name and municipality. And you'll need to unmute. I don't know if our IT department unmutes you or if you unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead, Dunder Mifflin. Go ahead. Dunder Mifflin? Maybe Dunder Mifflin, he's unmuted, so he should be speaking if he'd like to speak. No? Okay, we'll go to the next, and that's Mark Schaefer.
Hey, can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. Schaefer.
Sorry if I'm laughing. I'm appreciating the Dunder Mifflin name. Mark Schaefer from Wilkes-Barre. Yeah, I'd like to speak on the paper issue, obviously. I think it's important to keep in context whose job it is to actually run the election. The Board of Elections does not do that. And I think it gives you a good idea of the trouble that our county is in with running our elections, that Greg Wolovich, who's on county council, thinks that that's the Board of Elections job, when it's his job to know that it's the Bureau of Elections who runs the board. Our county council doesn't know whose job it is to run the elections. They've been interfering as much as they can to make a mess. And what we've seen is the nonsense that happened on election day. No one thinks it's acceptable that we ran out of paper, but this is a clear lesson in the importance of institutional knowledge. Any of you who have worked at any agency or business or anything for an extended period of time knows that when everyone who works there has only been there for 6 months or at most a couple of years, that's a problem. And the reason for that is because our county council refuses to invest in our Bureau of Elections. So everyone at the Bureau gets paid less than anyone at any Bureau in the surrounding counties. And while doing that, they have to deal with threats from the people in this meeting today. People aren't going to stay and work at your Bureau of Elections if they're getting paid a tiny amount of money and getting threatened at the same time. The idea of not certifying the election is laughable. There's been plenty of elections where there were problems. Florida had an election during a hurricane and they're certifying it. I think that people voting on provisional ballots is not a reason to discertify an election. Provisional ballots count just as much as a regular ballot. As someone who's worked elections for 6 years, we all know that when you tell someone, if they tell you you have to take a provisional ballot, take it because your vote still counts. And all that happens with a provisional ballot is the Bureau of Elections looks you up, makes sure you haven't already voted, and counts your vote. It's literally a means of ensuring election integrity and making sure that people only vote once. It should be something that the people ranting in the audience should appreciate, that we're making sure people only vote once. We have to certify this election. Obviously, we need to look into what caused the paper problem, and it seems pretty clear to me that it's a lack of experience of the Bureau of Elections. And what that means is we need to increase salaries, hire more people. Everyone here is calling for Beth to resign, ignoring the fact that she's an acting director, which is a problem in and of itself. How do you go through an election without having an actual director and having everyone being an acting and temporary position? That's just a recipe for disaster. And of course, we have the disaster you should have expected. We need to make sure that we have a fully staffed Bureau of Elections.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Robert Fisher. Go ahead, Mr. Fisher. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Fisher.
Am I all right now?
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm from Salem Township, and I was lucky enough to vote before they ran out of paper. But it's miles from my understanding, because I was at the council meeting last week with a member of the election board at the election office at the Salem Township, and she told me and told the rest of the council that they were told 3 times that that paper was on the way, but they never received paper. Nescapec did across the river bridge, but for some reason Salem Township never received any paper at all. I wanted to speak to the issue on the agenda of a request of the investigation of the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office. I do believe that that may not be a bad idea if you feel that there is fraudulent issues going on with the elections. And from what I heard this evening, and regarding potential corruption for years, and what I saw in the last 4 elections, there might be some corruption or intentional or fraudulent issues going on. Otherwise, there could be incompetence because of the turnover or whatever in there with the paper. And if that's an issue, then the appropriate person or office to investigate would be the county controller's office. And in fact, probably it would be best to have both a joint investigation between the district attorney and the controller's office. I personally know the controller, and I know that he would really make sure that everything, all the rocks were overturned to look at them, because he is with a dog with a bone when it comes to uprooting incompetence or even fraudulent issues as well. If that cannot be done, then as one of the other speakers mentioned this evening, possibly an outside statewide investigation would very well be appropriate. I request that you do not certify the election, and that because of all the issues that were brought forward this evening, it would only be fair for the county to have a new election using paper ballots to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to vote. If there's, and I again request a revote before there is a revolt. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next we'll have Andrea DiGiacomo.
Hello, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak this evening. First, I'd like to say that if you look in the dictionary under voter suppression, it'll refer you to Luzerne County. You know, we keep saying we have a paper shortage issue here on the table, and really what we have is a ballot shortage issue. Registered voters equal ballots, so the equation isn't that difficult to come up with. My questions are, you know, who is responsible for that portion, that process? If it's a contractor, who in Luzerne County is responsible for the contract and for managing that contractor and assuring that the contract is fulfilled? What are the penalties for breach of contract if it's an outside source, and what are the accountability if it's an internal source as far as termination? I was at the Hunlock Township voting district. I was there actually 3 times during the course of the day. At 9:30 a.m., they were out of paper. Was told to come back, that they would be getting paper. 2 o'clock, I came back. They were still out of paper. I asked if I could run and get paper for them. I was willing to drive to the courthouse or wherever was necessary. They said, no, paper's on the way, and it's a special kind of paper. I was back at 7:30. At 7:30, they were not only still didn't have paper, but they were out of provisional ballots and were making copies of the provisional ballots. And a copy allowed no way to trace whether anything happened with the provisional ballot or whether it's going to be counted or not. I can tell you that because I was there so often during the course of the day trying to cast my vote, I saw several people just walk away in disgust. So, you know, the 1,500 number that was quoted earlier as votes that needed to be counted from the provisional, that to me just seems, from my little rural Hunlock Township precinct, to be not valid. Mark made a comment earlier that the Election Bureau folks aren't paid enough. Well, we spent $300,000 for a sorting machine. Maybe that money would have been better spent on buying paper. Actually buying ballots. I do not feel we could go forward with certification of this election. There's too many discrepancies. Voters did not
Thank you.
vote, turned away.
I want to know where she's from.
Thank you very much.
Andrea, where are you
Hemlock-
from?
Hemlock Township.
Hemlock
Township. Thank you.
We'll have P.E. Smith, please, next. If you could please state your name and your full name and municipality.
Yeah, my
P.E.
name is
Smith, go ahead.
Patrick. My name is Patrick Smith and I'm from Hanover Township.
Okay, go ahead.
I've only got 2 comments to make. I voted by mail-in ballot, had no problems. Maybe some of the people there should consider doing that the next election. And I think before asking everyone to resign, we should find out what happened and just find a solution to it so we can move forward. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Peter Willett. Peter Willett, if the IT, there we go. Okay. Nice. Go ahead. Well, he's still muted. Mr. Willett is still muted. If we could unmute Mr. Willett. Does Mr. Willett have to
There we
unmute
go.
himself? There we go.
Hello?
Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Yes, this is Peter Willett. I'm from Pittston City. Served as an inspector at Ward 4 in Pittston City during this election and the previous few elections. Also served on the Board of Elections. I should say that the board right now is doing its proper role in listening to the issues brought up by the people of the county, and should be transferring those issues to the council and the administration of the county. Fortunately, in Pittston City, wards 2, 3, and 4 that vote in the same location, we did not run out of paper and no voters were turned away. As I see this, we have a problem in Luzerne County with turnover in the election office, the Bureau of Elections. It is understaffed and underpaid, and I think the responsibility for that sits squarely on the council and also the administration. There should be an investigation, and I think it's up to the Bureau, obviously, to decide whether they are going to certify the election results or not. But the problem squarely lies with council and county administration. We have a situation where it's all too often adversarial and high pressure with the Bureau of Elections, making it very difficult for people to work through their responsibilities. The Bureau needs to be funded well and staffed well with experienced people, and they need to be encouraged to stay in their positions in order for elections to run well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person will be, it says Marin, M-A-R-R-I-N. Okay, Marin needs to be unmuted. Please unmute, Marin. Marin is still muted. There you go. Go ahead. State your name and your municipality.
Martin Cunningham, my municipality is Kingston. I have a lot of things I could say. I'm going to keep it simple. Ultimately, according to state election law, the Board of Elections is ultimately responsible for all of this. It states in Section C, the Board of Elections is to purchase, preserve, store, and maintain primary and election equipment of all kinds, including voting booths, ballot boxes, and voting machines, and to procure ballots and all other supplies for elections. On that alone, I think you should all resign. Thank you.
Next will be Steve Urban. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, good evening, Steve Urban, Kingston, Pennsylvania, and Wilkes-Barre. Actually, the previous caller actually kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, but and I want to correct a previous caller. So number one, I'm going to go and actually read from the law again. Title 53 under 2962A, power granted by statute with respect to the following subjects. The home rule charter shall not give any power or authority to the municipality, which is Luzerne County. Luzerne County is a municipality, if I have to translate that for you. Contrary to or in limitation or enlargement of powers granted by statutes which are applicable to a class or classes of municipalities. So Luzerne County is a third class county, so we fall under that guidance. So 2962A, and it's going to be the letter or number 5 says the registration of electors and the conduct of elections, meaning that the charter itself does not give county council any powers to enlarge or diminish what's currently in state statute. And then so segue into the actual section which the previous caller read from Title 25, Section 2642. And let me put down 2642 starts off, says County Board of Elections within their respective counties shall exercise in the manner provided by this act all powers granted them by this act and shall perform all the duties imposed upon them by this act, which shall include the following. And B says to select and equip polling places that meet the requirements of the act. And then C is what the previous caller stated, to purchase, preserve, store, and maintain primary and election equipment of all kinds, including voting booths, ballot boxes, and voting machines, and to procure ballots and all other supplies for elections. Now, I've harped on this many times as a council person because there's a power conflict between the executive branch of government and the Board of Elections. And the Board of Elections, to their defense, was kicked out pretty much of the offices this past week by county management. I happened to be on the phone with the sheriff during the process of one of the members being kicked out of the office simply because that person was asking if 2 of the temp workers were sworn in to touch anything. And they were not sworn in. And I'm going on record by saying that because I was on the phone and I listened to the conversation. And after that, kind of hell broke loose at the office, and the Board of Election members were no longer allowed in that office. So really, the executive branch of government hijacked the entire process. Okay, they've been hijacking the process since the inception of home rule. County council is simply the body that legislates. We provide the money and we do provide the funding. And for the record, we did all, I think, unanimously voted on taking a grant from the state recently, which provided an additional like $1 million to help support the office, which includes paying people. So, you know, I find it reprehensible that some callers like to state mistruths. But
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and again, back to the paper issue, you only needed to know the difference between the amount of voters. Okay, Denise, we're going to play this game.
Thank you. Okay, the next caller will be Claudia Glennon. Go ahead,
Hi,
Ms.
my
Glennon.
name's Claudia. My name's Claudia Glennon. I'm from Salem Township, and I'm a former Navy commander. I've lived here for 25 years, and I first want to say I strongly object to being included in the statements of previous individuals who, by virtue of me being a member of Luzerne County, have included me in their comments by saying all members of Luzerne County. I do not agree with any of their statements. And to them, I would like to read a statement from Alexander Hamilton that he addressed to Thomas Jefferson. There are approximately 1,010,300 words in the English language, but I could never string enough words together to properly explain how much I want to hit you with a chair. I think we need to let the board have their meeting on what happened and find out before you can knowledgeably comment on anything. I have spent 14 hours over the past several days at the Board of Elections, watching this dedicated team of election board members, and I will say every single one of them, scrutinizing and bending over backwards to make sure that every vote that could be counted is counted.
It's not about.
Reviewing all the material that needs to be reviewed to do that. And many of you, I think, would be well informed to come and sit in on some of these sessions and see, or maybe if you're a party, one of the two major parties, even volunteer to be a sanctioned representative. So maybe our county controller, Walter Griffin, can do his job instead of having to sit in on the ballot adjudication. I'll save the rest of my comments to the end. Thank you.
Thank you. There's anonymous, but we ask that you state your name and municipality, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Teresa Kane, and I'm actually in Oliphant in Lackawanna County. But I was calling because someone told me that I know personally that they voted in Cherry Ridge and their ballot was put in just like a box on a floor. So I'm not sure what was going on election day, but one question I would have is of many of the counties across the country, Luzerne County was mentioned as one of the counties that would be monitored in the polls by the Department of Justice. Did that happen?
Do you have a question regarding the paper shortage? Or
well, yes, I'm just wondering if there was monitors in there by the Department of Justice, and also were all of the provisional ballots counted?
Do you have any other comments besides that? That's related to the paper shortage?
Well, I was just wondering if the provisional ballots, was everybody's provisional ballots counted? Because it just seems like there was such a disarray of everything that happened. And first thing in the morning, I mean, it seemed like it was a county that was under great scrutiny to begin with from the federal government, and then to have, missing ballots so early in the morning, and then people are on provisional, people are coming back multiple times. Like there's probably many people, they couldn't come and vote at 9 o'clock at night. So I'm just thinking it was really, I mean, I don't know how you can possibly say it was an election that was free and fair. And I would really encourage us to, potentially look at doing it over and doing it right. Would you be able to answer the question as to whether or not all the provisional ballots were counted as votes?
We're still, the board is still working through the adjudication process of adjudicating all the provisionals and all of the mail-in ballots that were voted during the November general election.
Okay. I mean, I watched at a poll in Lackawanna County, and I had people saying to me that who have worked the polls as officials, elected officials, and they were like, the books were all messed up. There were people that were not in the books that should have been in the books, and they had to do a ton of provisional ballots that they have not had to do in past elections. So there just seems to be something that should be, is so strictly monitored, as far as there's so many specific rules that have to be followed, to the point where they said to people, you can't wear camouflage pants or anything into the polling place. If it's that stringent, like how could we potentially have confidence in what occurred? I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller is Jay Notar Tomasa. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sorry
state
about
your
that. My
name and
voice is-
municipality, please.
Yeah, Jay Notar Tomaso, Wyoming. Our priority tonight should be to get the votes all counted and certified as quickly as possible to make sure that this does not happen again. One way to make sure that this doesn't happen again is to fully fund the Bureau of Elections moving forward. The problem is clearly the responsibility of the county manager, whose job it is to run the elections, and Luzerne County Council, who is responsible for vetting and hiring competent staff. Making every single person come out and vote again would disenfranchise people even more. The Board of Elections does not buy paper and hire staff to run the elections. Redoing an election for Luzerne County, it's inappropriate, it's unnecessary, and it's an undue burden. We need to not direct the problem onto this board and place it where it belongs, at the foot of our county council run by 10 Republicans, some of whom obviously don't even know who run the elections. The thought of having another election denier replace Denise Williams would put us in even more peril. I've been watching these meetings regularly, and Denise has been nothing but professional, fair, and competent. To think that this board is somehow corrupt and the mistakes made were due to intentional fraud is just more attempts to disenfranchise voters and is just misdirected anger. Please count every vote, certify the results of the elections, prevent this from happening again, and fully fund elections, which the Republican-run county council has obviously failed to do. I advise every single person who is upset tonight by the mistakes made to take their anger to the next county council meeting and demand their resignations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next group, I don't see any hands raised. There are four participants who, there are several participants who are on by phone, so, and I don't see any hands raised. So if we could bring them on and unmute them, and if any of them would like to speak.
I want to go again. It's on Zoom.
There's one comment time per person. We did this room, then we went to that room. That was the process. And now we went to the Zoom platform. Now we go, there are 5 that are on by phone. If you could bring them up onto the Zoom platform, and then and we'll unmute the 5 of them. And if any one of them would like to speak, if they don't, it's just so that we can make sure we're not missing anyone. We're going to, I have 2 email comments that were sent earlier to read into the record.
And I would also like to state, you will get a chance to speak again at the end.
Yes, we do have a second
Thank
public
you.
comment after we have our meeting. So if you could, if the IT could unmute all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 telephone numbers, and if anyone would like to speak, we will let them speak, or if they'd like to unmute themselves, all they have to do is push *6. *6 is how you would unmute yourself if you're on a phone. We'll give a few seconds, and then if that doesn't happen, they obviously don't want to speak. We're just bringing them forward just so we don't miss anyone. So *6 would be to unmute if any callers would like to speak. It doesn't appear that way, so now I'm going to read into the record 2 emails that we received that were asked to be read into the record. Okay, the first one that I'm going to read is from a Ms. Louise Hoekstra. I voted at Buck Township on Tuesday, November 8th. 2022. My experience is that due to paper shortages, I was asked by Alyssa Fusaro of the Luzerne County Election Board to find and buy as much paper, 80-pound text for the voting printers as I could, and that the Luzerne County Election Board would reimburse me. I bought 1,500 pieces of voting paper for $502.92. Receipt attached. I brought it to her in Wilkes-Barre to the Luzerne County Election Board office, and I'm waiting for reimbursement. Not providing paper on which to vote is disenfranchising voters and is a form of voter suppression. This is what happened to me on election day. When my husband and I arrived at our polling place, Buck Township, in the morning, we noticed only Democrat candidate signs outside the polling place. We wondered where the Republican candidate signs were, which had been there in October. Never before have we seen only one party signs outside a polling place. My husband and I went inside and asked if the machines were working properly as we had heard reports from Arizona about faulty machines. The girl there said yes, but that they had ran out of paper. She was blocking our way as if we couldn't vote. My husband questioned her more, and she finally admitted that she had just refilled the machines, and she reluctantly took us back, and we both voted. This situation seemed very strange to us. Why would she tell us they were out of paper when they weren't, unless she didn't want us to vote? At 11:59 a.m., a friend, Patty Gleason, called to say her husband, Richie, went to Whitehaven VFW to vote, and he was told they were out of paper and to come back later or use a provisional ballot. I said we had also been told that our polling place had ran out of paper too. I told her to report the issue and that I would report it too. I called Alyssa Fusaro at the Luzerne County Elections Board and reported the paper outage to her. She said it was a county-wide issue, as was a staffing issue with 20% of the poll workers not showing up to work. She said she had to scramble to staff all the polling places so people could vote. Alyssa asked me to buy 80-pound text paper if I could find it anywhere, and the board would reimburse me. My husband and I went to Staples in Wilkes-Barre and bought everything they had in stock, 1,500 pieces of paper for $502.92, and we delivered it to Alyssa at the LCEB. Has my receipt and I'm waiting for reimbursement. Countywide paper and staff shortages sound like an intentional and coordinated effort to suppress votes on election day. Thank you very much. And the other one is from Robin Kochan in Dallas Township. To council, I asked you remember these words: the taxpayers expect county government to move forward, not backwards. We can't be going over the same issue again. This was a sentiment of Councilman Mitchell, McGinley, and Lombardo when asked to ban voting drop boxes in the county. Radel, Perry, and McDermott joined their vote against an ordinance to completely ban drop boxes in this county, and not one council member came forward to put on the agenda Councilman Thornton's proposed ordinance to eliminate drop boxes. These words come back to haunt your myopic decision now that Luzerne County has the worst election results on record. You were told that drop boxes are wrong devices and have split the county. That issue would constantly rear its ugly head, and to move on, we have to get rid of drop boxes. You didn't listen, you didn't care, as Councilman Mitchell stated, and you didn't have the time to be going through this again. Now look at how much time you are spending over this disaster. Look at the complete public distrust you've created in our elections by allowing incompetents to choose convenience over integrity and accuracy. And when Councilman McDermott said a lawsuit is inevitable, he surely wasn't referring to the numerous forthcoming lawsuits over the inept handling of this election overall. It's about more than paper shortages. We hold you accountable, and particularly those who campaigned on election integrity. What have you been doing? Council was advised numerous times on the powers and blurs of duties in the county voting process, and to follow Title 25, which is the rule of the law of elections and supersedes the county charter. It is unconscionable that nothing has been done after the Election Inquiry Committee specifically recommended that the responsibilities of the Board of Elections and voter registration, as well as the responsibility of county employees, should be defined by county council within the administrative code, informed by Pennsylvania law. As Councilman Lombardo indicated, council put it on the back burner. Choosing to ignore this advice has resulted in this election mess. Have you learned anything now from your negligence? We, the taxpayers, are sick of excuses for ineptitude, endless committees, and recommendations to the Election Bureau that they do not follow, and essentially passing the buck for responsibility. We hate to think what is going to cost the county now, which is essentially each and every taxpayer. You should be ashamed of yourselves for your gross disservice to the public. Stop passing the buck and institute Title 25 of election law in this county, and join 44 of the 67 counties who no longer provide mail ballot drop boxes, including for a redo of the midterm election. Sincerely, Robin Coach in Dallas Township. Okay, those were the two emails read into the record. We'll now move into the agenda items, and there's only one agenda item because it was a special meeting for just that, the November 2022 general election printer. Okay, thank you. The printer shortage at polls, possible board vote to request investigation by the Luzerne County District Attorney's Office. I called this meeting of the board, and so I'm going to start by sharing, and then I'll open it up to discussion from the board. I was informed by Chief County Solicitor Harry Skeen that the Election Bureau leadership will not be attending tonight, as their focus needs to be finishing their election duties. He also informed me that once completed, they will perform an internal investigation and then be ready to discuss in detail what occurred during the 2022 general election. With that said, my position on this is in light of the election code that reads that under the County Boards of Election, Article 3, County Boards of Election, Section 302, the role of the election board or election boards are to investigate election frauds, irregularities, and violations of this act, and to report all suspicious circumstances to the district attorney. I consider this an irregularity, and my position would be to report this, refer this to the Office of the District Attorney for investigation. And I'll open it up to the rest of the board members for discussion.
Would you like to go?
No, you go ahead. I think you're going to say the same as me, but I'm going to let you have at it first.
There's no doubt in my mind that I think we should move forward in requesting a full investigation by either the district attorney's office or the comptroller, whoever is best suited to pursue this. I think it's premature to go to the district attorney unless there's criminal intent proven, but clearly there needs to be an immediate investigation by either of those two parties.
I'm in agreement that there needs to be an immediate investigation, but I have to say, I find it absolutely appalling and disgusting that we are unable to actually investigate this because the people responsible, we can't figure out who was responsible because people just decided not to come to the meeting, or that the attorney says they don't have to. This is a problem. We need to investigate this fully and wholly. The people want answers, and that's what you're here for. Why are we not asking these questions? Whose responsibility was it? That's the whole purpose of this meeting, was to establish that, to determine where this fell, what happened. And I've been watching online the whole time and want to know why these people, our bureau office is not online, not here, not able to answer these questions. No, we're not able to talk to them and find out, okay, what's going on? Because I know what was told to me about the paper situation, and I was expecting to ask those questions and get to the bottom of all of this tonight. And now I'm unable to. So though this was productive in the fact that we got to hear from our voters, it is unproductive in the fact that we're passing the buck to the district attorney without investigating and without doing our due diligence within the bureau office and within everything else. And it seems like it's like everything else, it's a bureaucracy, and oh, that's not up to you. You just said it's up to us to investigate and do this properly, and we're not. And I'm sorry, but I am furious right now.
I have to agree that we need to look to find out what happened. To me, right now, we're still counting all the provisionals, trying to get all that stuff done. But I really want to know why there wasn't paper, why the machines weren't sent out there right. If it has to go to the county controller, if it has to go to the district attorney's office, I'm all for it. Because right now our hands are basically tied because we have too many other things to do with the ballots. Every provisional ballot will be counted. Anybody that voted on the Xerox paper or anything else will be transferred by a joint team so that it will be counted. They'll all be counted. Provisional ballots, even though they were issued, you have to be checked if you're still an eligible voter. Sometimes you find somebody sent in a mail ballot.
and then tried to vote at the polls and was given a provisional ballot, then you find out they've already voted. So the provisional ballot can't count. You only get one vote, and it takes time to research all this stuff, to check over and see what's there. Why there wasn't paper? That's a lot of extra work for us, a lot of extra work. But I would like to know what happened that the paper wasn't there. What happened that the machines didn't work right? One of the things with the machines is when you take electronic equipment, put it in the back of a truck and drive over the roads in Luzerne County, you're lucky if only one works. Because they can't take the rattling. They can't take the shaking. You have to play with them then to get them back into working order. And when you only have an hour to do it in the morning, that's tough. But I think we really need to go forward and go with calm heads to look and see what's going on and happened in the past, and see what we can do to find out what the solution is and where the problem really lied.
Okay, I too want to find out what happened, obviously. I do want an investigation into all of this. I'm not sure that it should just go to the controller's office. I'm not sure I really, with all that's going on. Everybody's expressed all kinds of opinions about it. I'm almost thinking we should go refer it to the DA. If he wants to cede some of that investigation to the controller, I'd be fine with that, but I'm not really sure I would like it to go to the controller without any supervision.
My issue is all right. We have 4 Dropbox issues. Now, I know that's not part of the meeting, but I'm going to state it because they're in front of the DA. One of those issues is from the general 2021. It's still in the DA's office and haven't heard about it. We need issues, we need answers. We have issues, and we need to attack this from our investigative, you even said it, and it also says it in Title 25, Section 2642, to investigate and report to the, no, that's not it. That's a different one. Sorry, there is an investigation one here. Okay. To investigate election frauds, irregularities, and violations of this act, and to report all suspicious circumstances to the district attorney. We have not done our investigation yet. We need to get to the bottom of this here, and we need to find out so that we can report to the people. And then we need, if charges need to be pressed, and we need to investigate even further than that, then we need to go ahead and put it in front of the district attorney. At this point, you know, I have a report here, minimum right now, and we're talking about a constable. We're not talking about some, you know, even just a voter that says, oh, my friend, you know, whatever. We're talking about, we turned away as an accurate estimate some 50 voters. We had no operating machines, no printer paper, and no paper ballots. They turned away 50 voters at a thing, and he said only 20 of them came back that he estimates. That's a big problem. That is voter like suppression right there. I'm sorry, that is. And we have to find out what happened. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel.
I would just like.
That's what this is for, and we're not even doing it.
Okay, may I continue my comment? Yes.
Because I thought you were done. I apologize.
Yes, I know. I wasn't quite finished, so I'm continuing my comment. I'm a citizen volunteer. I was an insurance service rep for years and years. I do not have the competence to conduct this kind of investigation. The board should refer this elsewhere.
I don't, in the election code that I read to you under Article 3, County Boards of Elections, Section 302 of the election code, when it comes to situations like this, and we've had several in the past that the board has had situations on that Ms. Busaro mentioned, we have always referred them to the office of the district attorney. And that's what it states, to report all suspicious circumstances to the district attorney. Any investigation that we've requested, we've always referred there. I do not see anything in the election code, and I did look specifically for that because I've heard references to people saying to let the controller, I don't know where that came from. But I do not and have not seen anything that refers to sending anything from the county boards of elections to the controller, which I don't believe that's the role of the controller, to investigate something of this nature. This is not something that involves expenditures of the county and that type of auditing investigation. So my recommendation, again, I'm going to go back to, is to stick with what the election code says and states regarding in Article 3, Section 302, is that we would report, and as we have done with every report we've done since I've been on this board, to the district attorney. It's in black and white. And I think, I know I spoke second, Ms. Fusaro spoke second, and you really didn't get a chance to speak second because you were continuing, but would Mr. Mangan or Mr. Schramm like to have a second response? Or Ms. Cerniak? Anything else to add?
I have something to add. I think that it's just going to get pushed under a pile of papers again. And I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. And not that I don't think that everybody can do their job. I just think that the district attorney's office is so overwhelmed with all the other issues in the county. I mean, for Pete's sake, he's got everything from robberies to murders and to everything else to investigate, even arson, things of those nature that they all need to be investigated. And then we pile other stuff on his, not saying that he can't handle it. I'm just saying that it will be pushed off again, and it will be another thing that we have to sit and wait for. And the people deserve some sort of answer now. That's all.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to make a motion that we refer the printer paper shortage for an investigation to the office of Luzerne County District, Office of the District Attorney. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mangan. Roll call vote. Mr. Schramm.
Yes.
Ms. Cerniak.
Yes.
Ms. Fusaro.
Yes, with the caveat that we continue investigating ourselves.
If you would like to make that.
That is my yes.
Yes.
With a caveat.
Mr. Mangan.
Yes.
And Ms. Williams, yes, the motion passes unanimously that we will refer the printer paper shortage to the Office of DA for investigation. We'll now move into public comment on non-agenda items. I have a list, but what we'll do is we'll follow the same plan that we followed in the beginning of the meeting for the agenda items. And that is, we'll start with whoever's in this room. We'll move to the outside room. I have a list. Then we'll move to the Zoom platform and any who are on the phone call. So we'll start with first row, second row, third, fourth. So anyone in the first row who would like to speak during the second public comment?
Good evening, Ben Herring from Duryea once again. 4 things that I took note of and I wanted to make comment here. Obviously, with watching 2 hours of public comment here, you guys were able to hear a lot of our concerns. And I really, really hope, despite the demeanor and the constant checking of text messages or whatever on the phone by this lady in blue.
The timer.
No, I understand that, ma'am. I'm talking about the lady next to you. Pretty observant, and I did notice there was some of the demeanor here was, let's hurry up and get the citizen to say his 3 minutes and let's move on. Okay, that was a demeanor that I caught a little bit from right there. Okay, and it's kind of proven out with some other things I'll get to. So one thing I think you can all do immediately that will restore maybe an inch of credibility is, you stated that there might not be a referral to the comptroller or because it deals with financials. Well, somebody in this county had to sign a contract with the vendor to bring those machines into Luzerne County. So whoever that somebody is needs to be declared to the public immediately And not only does that person need to be identified as who was the contract officer or the signatory of that contract, you need to release publicly on the website immediately by tomorrow, the contract of Luzerne County and whoever the contractor was that provided those machines. Because in that contract, it should state, if they were to provide paper, if you were to inspect the paper, if they were to bring it fully stocked, all those details lie within a contract. So you need to provide that contract immediately, and your refusal to do so will speak volumes. I also wanted to bring up one thing. So there's a close race in Luzerne County between James Haddock and James May. Last I checked, it was about 1,100 votes difference. But when I go on to the news, I see that it says James Haddock has won that race. If you've not counted one provisional ballot, because when I go to the state website, it shows me 0 provisional ballots counted for Luzerne County, then how can that race be called? If I'm estimating 16, 15,000 potentially, then how can anybody call that race? And furthermore, if you refer this to the district attorney, is that still going to be a certified called race? And if it is, shame on you guys, because that's a lot of provisional ballots and a lot of voter suppression that happened that needs to be investigated. And before that investigation is concluded, this election should not be certified. 100% should not be certified. I want to address another one of the elephants in the room, which is the papers, the precincts where the paper ran out, go figure, is predominantly Republican areas where the voter registration of those precincts were more Republican than Democrat. You heard a fellow tonight tell you that Pittston City didn't run out. You know why? Pittston City is pretty Democrat ridden. So let's do the math there. And I think that needs to be released as well. What precincts that were more Democrat registered than Republicans ran out of paper? I guarantee the answer is 0.
Thank you very much.
Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. Ms. Williams, how many precincts ran out of paper?
I'm not sure. I don't have that number right now.
We were supposed to get that number tonight.
You were supposed to get that number tonight.
Yep.
So is it 20? Is it higher than that? Is it 30? Is it higher than 30?
I don't know what the number is.
I have a photo with Beth McBride in it showing 34 precincts, and then there's been 10 reported after that. So the number's 44. Those 44 precincts were down an average of 5 hours. 5 hours. Some were down 3 hours, some were down 9 hours. They were down on average 5 hours. Times 100 voters to 125 voters that come through those polling locations an hour is in excess of 30,000 voters that were affected by this mistake. It needs to be rectified. We are still waiting for the DA from 2020 election to rule on 3 cases and investigate 3 cases that I know of. You want us to wait another 2 years to make this right? We need a new election now. Yeah, that is it. And of the 44 precincts, everybody here, even your accountant friend that came up here and spoke, the reason she's a former accountant is because she's not very good at math. Okay, she said she was a former accountant. That's what happens to former accountants. Those 44 precincts vote 65 to 75% Republican, and that's who ran out of paper. We need a new election now.
Dave Stetler, Hunlock Township. I'd like to clarify one thing that's been stated. When you say that we voted that you can't count the provisional ballots because you have to check them out, Our provisional ballots that we were voting on, because we had nothing else to vote on, was turned in separate envelopes. We did not go through the procedure of filling them in individually. They were in stacks and they were put in envelopes and they were handed to the person and said, when the judge of elections went up and said, understand, these are our votes. They're not provisional ballots. So don't tell me they're provisional ballots. When I look online, now I don't know how often you update this, but I look online, Hunlock's missing close to 400 votes, at least 400 votes at Hunlock. If you go down and look, I heard the CPA or whatever say, well, she checked and there's nothing wrong. Hunlock was below 30%. We're never that low. People come out to vote. They come out numerous times to try to get the vote when they couldn't vote. When somebody says how many, it was on this whiteboard, how many places were begging for paper. Now, by my count, it's closer to 50, but it might be 44. There was a couple redundancies. I would just like to point out that when you go through the list of all the problems, one thing, already back in August, the Times, or the, excuse me, Citizens Voice, I apologize, Citizens Voice ran an article about, well, can the county elections run better? Obviously not, because they didn't. They didn't even come close. On the back of my page here is the rest of the issues where there's nobody responsible in this county for this process. Nobody. The county manager's not responsible. The county council's not responsible. Nobody's responsible for this process. I don't understand it. So somebody should tell me, when you go through, they should be checking these machines. I heard plenty of counts where machines, and heard them tonight, where they weren't working. So you got, nobody's reading the ballots when somebody said vote mail-in. When I voted mail-in during COVID, our instructions were wrong. It said fill in the ovals on the left side of the column. There were no ovals on the left side. So when I filled them on the right side, who did I vote for? I have no idea. I voted on, and I tried to find the picture because I sent it out on Facebook and I could not find it, but I did have one showing people, this is what happened. I couldn't understand it. So, because I'm sure I'll be running out of time, but the list goes on and on about all the problems we have. So when are you going to be able to tell us when our votes are being counted? And why isn't that updated periodically? It's got to be some update. And so I think that the next counties, for the county council, for the next county manager that's hired here, his first priority, forget everything else, is to fix this damn mess, because we have these problems year after year. I don't care who's in charge or whatever, but it's year after year, and this tops it all. Nobody even comes close.
Thank you. Anybody in the second row? Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. There's somebody in the first row. State your name and municipality.
My name is Dennis Shovlin, and I'm presently in Dallas Township. I'm 81 years of age, been a veteran with a total of 27 years total service in the United States Air Force and the United States Army. I had 33 plus years in the Pennsylvania State Police. In the past, I had a voting machine problem where it was not recording the vote the way I made the vote on the candidate that I made the vote on. And right from the polling place, I called the county office about that. That happened before the Dominion machines came into view or part of the present election system. When that happened, I have never received any results of why that happened in years past. The machines I complained about in the previous elections didn't necessarily pertain to paper shortages or paper failure or paper quality. I had a problem with the machines where you go behind the curtain and vote. So there was a problem there. This time, I attempted to vote a straight ticket. I was informed I cannot vote a straight ticket with these machines. I have to vote individually for each individual candidate. When I heard that, I thought, uh-oh. Again, the machines need to be closely examined and find out what the problem is. Our Luzerne County has lost respect. Right now, the state of Pennsylvania's lost respect. Nationwide, they're talking about us. Our election system has lost the trust of the voters. And it causes people to be suspicious in our elections. An investigation needs to be completed by an outside agency, maybe a federal agency, I don't know, with no conflict of interest. Whatever the agency is, it cannot have any conflict of interest with this building, with our county officials. Amen. It may prove that there's criminal involvement, or it may prove that it's just a matter of our election system is not worthy of any confidence by our voters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shovelin. Mr. Shovelin, thank you for your service as well.
You're welcome.
Next comment? Oh.
You get what you give. Thank you for your service, sir. Well, you were very happy.
Hello, I'm Brian Dwyer from Larksville Ward 2. I'm going to pick up where I left off before.
Okay.
Again, Luzerne County cannot certify this election. Based on the comments and the votes during the agenda session, refer this matter to the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania or the U.S. Department of Justice. Get it out of Luzerne County. You'll never get any confidence from the voters by having it done inside Luzerne County. Again, we turned away, as an accurate estimate, some 50 voters when we had no operating machines and no printer paper and no paper ballots. In our best estimates, only about 20 of those citizens came back to vote. Some of those turned away voters had been turned away in the morning when the voting machines were inoperable because they had to go to work. Then they heard from other members of the community that the voting machines were working, only to find when they came back that they couldn't use them when they showed up a second time because we were out of copier paper. Again, Luzerne County cannot in good faith certify this election. Printer paper has never been an issue at this polling place in the past 3 election cycles. There have been other issues, but not the amount of printer paper. We average a very consistent voter turnout of some 400 voters through that polling place, Larksville Ward 2. This equates to about 2 packages of printer paper, 500 sheets at our polling place at a cost of about $60 at Staples in Wilkes-Barre. Based on the above factual statements, there is no excuse for what went on that day. Screwing up one polling place is not acceptable, but it can happen. Someone still needs to be held accountable. Screwing up 4 or 5 polling places is not a mistake. It's an atrocity to the residents of this county, and someone needs to be fired. Screwing it up, as I understand it, the vast majority of polling places in Luzerne County rises to the level of criminality, and multiple people need to be held accountable. Again, there needs to be a competent investigation into what transpired on election day in this county, and it needs to be conducted by agencies outside of this county. Again, you can only start to rebuild the trust in voting of the residents of Luzerne County that you destroyed by having a competent investigation conducted by a competent outside state or federal agency into what went wrong on election day, November 2022, and identifying and charging those who should be held responsible for those events, actions, or inactions. Again, based on what I have just stated to you, Luzerne County cannot in good faith to the residents of Luzerne County certify this election. You have to refer it to an agency outside of Luzerne County, either the PA Attorney General or the U.S. Department of Justice, FBI, whoever you choose, but you can't do it in Luzerne County. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the second row?
I don't know the lists are out there, but we thought we were just putting them in here.
And go ahead.
I have a couple questions. Vivian Kreidler, same from Nescapeck Township. Do you know how many photocopy ballots were fed into the scanner at election? And two, can you say within 100% certainty that the photocopied ballots that were put through the scanner were counted exactly the same way as a ballot on the correct paper? And according to PA election law 25 PA stats and .2644, it states that just as a side note, the board does have investigation power and can use subpoenas to get your information. So you are allowed to do an investigation on what happened. So why you're trying to push it off on somebody, I don't know. It would be my suggestion that the board include the county controller, Mr. Griffith, and just try and find out what happened, what went wrong, and where it went wrong, and get rid of those people who caused the problem. Most of us know where the problem started. Most of us know what's going on. We have Miss Macbeth or McBride, who was hired as the assistant, is now, nobody knew, became the director. And then Miss Cook was hired as the assistant. Yous were all told at the polls that yous weren't to take any direction from anybody except for McBride and Cook. So what happened to that? Yous had no say. In the last 4 months, I have seen this county go up and down, up and down, up and down, because Mr. Robertson seems to think that he can just change the rules at any time, change playbooks. It's not true. An investigation should be completed in this matter. Walter Griffin should be in charge of that investigation and allowed to do his job to complete that investigation. And if found that criminal charges should be brought, then he should follow criminal charges with the district attorney of another county, because our district attorney isn't doing anything about past fraud. They're still sitting there and they'll sit there forever. So therefore is my feeling that they should go to another district attorney's office to file these charges so proper and fair investigation can be held. And as many others hold Randy Roberts, McBride, Denise William, and Emily Cook accountable for the problem on election day. And for all of them, we ask that you resign immediately, but I'm asking you, I don't know who's on the Bob, do not certify this election until after a complete audit and investigation is completed.
Thank you.
That is the only way you're going to get the people of Luzerne County to trust in you again.
Thank you. Anybody else in the second row? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Walter Griffith, County Controller. I just want to say, I sat through the past couple of days of adjudication with this board. And to the people who are coming here asking for the resignation of this board, you don't really know the work that's involved. This board has worked tirelessly for hours and hours and hours adjudicating ballots that are really a mess, quite frankly. They're just a mess. The whole process was a mess. I give them credit for taking the time and the effort to try and straighten out a dog's breakfast, for lack of a better term. They're counting every vote they can possibly count, and some of them were torn, some of them were just not processed properly. So I give them credit for all their due diligence that they're working on. The issue that I have is the paper shortage is an issue for the manager. This board should be voting for a motion and a second and a county vote of this board to send to the council to remove him, terminate him immediately based on your recommendation that he did not get paper for the ballots. That's where the fault lies. The buck stops at the manager's desk, nowhere else. We can't fire the manager, we can't fire the director, and we can't fire the deputy director. That's impossible. The charter doesn't allow it. Make a recommendation from this board to the council that they remove the manager. That's where the fault lies. That's the vote you should have took tonight. The other vote should have been is to pay the poll workers for the 2 hours that they put in to adjudicating and doing the work for the 2 hours. That's the function of this board. You should have did that tonight so that those folks could be paid for their 2 hours. That didn't happen. The county charter is clear. There was an election inquiry committee formed to investigate the election at the last time. The charter is clear. Gives the county controller the ability to investigate any board, authority, or commission in this county, contrary to the chair's opinion. That is the duty of the controller. I don't want to do that on my own. I want to do that with the board. I want to do it with the district attorney. I want to do it with the council together collaboratively so we can fix the problem. The time to stop throwing spears at people is now. It's time to get together to fix problems. You don't like me, I don't care. That's not my problem. I could care less. The issue here is do what's right for the people of this county. And if you don't like me, I should be getting way more money than I'm getting paid. The fact of the matter is, do what's right for the people. Get together, fix the problem, and get rid of the people that caused it. That's your job as a board. Don't throw spears at me because I don't care. Ms. Williams, if you don't like me, I could care less. My job in the charter is to do what I'm supposed to do. If you're going to say I don't have that duty, read the charter. If you can't read it, then that's your problem. But the fact of the matter is, this county is in trouble. And it's in trouble because everybody wants to fight among everybody else instead of doing the job they're supposed to do. We want to fight with the manager. We want to fight with the council. We want to fight with the boards. Let's get together and fix problems and stop throwing darts at everybody. Get together, figure out what happened, and fix the problems.
Thank you. Just want to follow up that at the last county council meeting, Mr. Griffith, I thought I heard Mr. Robertson share, and I've heard it since then, that the poll workers are being paid for the 2 additional hours. And you actually asked us, the board members, to check to the statute to make sure that the amount that's given to them does not go over the election code. There's a maximum that they can be given. And we are working on checking into that with the solicitor. Also, I want to share that Mr. Griffith shared about the adjudication process that we're going through and how he's been a part of it, and he has been for two of the days. When we do the adjudication as a board, the chairs of the Republican, the 4 major parties in Luzerne County have been invited to oversee, be part of the process, watch very closely what we're doing, and be right in the room with us. They are right there with us. We show them everything we do. We call them up. They also look at everything we do. And sometimes the Republican party chair, or the Democratic party chair, or the other, the Green or the Libertarian, cannot be there to be there present themselves, and they send a delegate. And Mr. Griffith has been there 2 of the days as one of the delegates for the Republican Party, and has been very much taken an active role. But I want to let you know that those chairs, or their delegates that they send, watch over what we do and everything we do very closely through the adjudication process. And I think that's to me, it's an important part of the process that they're involved in that as much as we are, so they can see actually everything that we're doing during those days of adjudicating all of these provisionals. Okay, so I'm sorry, the next commenter, either in the 2nd row or the 3rd, is it Ian Kennedy?
Yes.
Just state your municipality again, Mr. Kennedy.
Dallas, Dallas Township, Pennsylvania. And my testimony today is going to be about my poll working experience at Nanticoke Ward 2. But before I start there, I actually don't know who everyone here on the Board of Elections is. So can you guys state your names? Because I don't know who you are, and I want to address you.
Well, just address us as a whole board.
I remember she made a comment, so I want to actually.
I'm Audrey Cernick. I'm the secretary.
Audrey Cernick. Okay. All right. So to start on the experience I had at Nanticoke Ward 2, the machines were down from 7 to 8. People had signed in, but they didn't vote. They were told to come back. Halfway through the day, probably around 10 or 11 o'clock, we ran out of paper. The minority inspector that was there working with the judge of elections. While the judge of elections had stepped out, the minority inspector had also stepped out to his vehicle and grabbed paper that was an open package, and brought it in and put it in the machines. I was weary about that, but this is my first time being a poll worker, so I didn't really understand how it all works, but I saw that as an issue. So then throughout the day, I looked at the machines and how they were dated. One of the machines that was dated, so the ballot said November 8th, 2022, but the machine was dated for I want to say June of 2017. So the machine was dated for 2017, but the ballot that it printed out was dated for November 8th, 2022. And I'm not keen on election law, but I'm pretty sure that the machines need to be set up and calibrated every election cycle, or used in every election. Therefore, the machine should be up to date, and it wasn't. The judge of elections that was there was asked to be judge of elections 5 p.m. the day before the election because they didn't have a judge of elections. When he was there that day, I mean, he was definitely not qualified for the job. And the reason why that was because he was asking people, me and other people there, what to do. He was only given an hour, from what I understand, from what he told me, he was only given an hour to as training, like a video for training for an hour, and he was given that, but that was it. So, but he had mismanaged the provisional ballots. You know, he forgot to put certain things in with the ballot when he went the envelope. So he had to cut open the envelope and then put it back in there and then tape it up. And I'm just like, that's just not right. And then, those are my experiences just at that day, and also just all the people that came in that wanted to vote that couldn't because their voter registration told them they were supposed to vote there, but then they were supposed to vote somewhere else. They would go to that other location, and then that place would deny them, and they'd come back to our place and say, well, they're telling me I have to come here. So that's happening. But real quick before I leave here, I just wanted to say this. Audrey had said that she's not qualified to investigate. She worked in insurance or whatever for 20 years. Well, if you're not qualified to investigate, then how are you qualified to be on the board? And then the second question is, do you think you should resign? Like, do you guys think? No, I'm just and just answer the question. I'll leave. And do you guys think you should resign? And then it says, do you think you should represent us? I mean, ask yourself that question. Ethically, your time is up. Next do you caller. Think that you should represent us? Propose to yourself that question. And then that's what you should do. Thank you.
And I have a question. You said people signed in at the poll. Did they ever get the chance to vote after signing that
I don't
paper?
know, because they never came back and said, I showed up earlier and I'm here to vote now.
So
I don't know.
they signed the book and then walked out?
And then walked out, yes.
Thank you.
The tabulation on the machine read differently than the number of people that had signed it.
Wow. Thank you. Okay. We're still calling people. We haven't gotten to the outside room yet. Were you from the outside room?
Yeah.
And you came in? We were still going through the inside room. What's that? Yeah, this is the second.
No, I understand.
Okay, so, okay.
I'm Walt Koshan from Dallas Township. It's funny that Ms. Williams, when she attends county council meetings, goes well over the 3 minutes, and when she's told to stop, continues on. That's fine in another setting, but here, it's a little different. The fact that the chair tried to prevent a Lackawanna County resident from speaking and spent 15 minutes doing this of the voters and taxpayers' time. It's not the issue. And I don't know if that's policy or if that's written or habit. And then we went back to the attorney who carried water for Ms. Williams. You know, it's kind of this and that. More than anything, it's emblematic of obstruction. It's a mindset. Rather than showing concern to get to the bottom of this issue, it's obstructionist. It goes deeper. And then in the end, she voted to allow it, but only because 2 other members had the courage to create a majority after this other young lady voted to allow this woman to speak. How convenient that her vote goes down as allowing it when she tried to obstruct it for 15 minutes and wasted taxpayers' time for 15 minutes. And I'm going to use every damn second of my 3 minutes. The county manager shouldn't be allowed to resign. He should be fired so he gets no power, no golden parachute. He's incompetent. The same goes with Ms. McBride, who is virtually the same. Turned our election into a travesty and a laughing stock, wasted everyone's time. And the fact that Ms. Williams can't tell us how many polling locations were out of paper is unconscionable. How does that happen? It's bizarre. I can't believe that she doesn't have an inkling, but to feign ignorance of that is telling me how deep this incompetence is. And if this woman has any decency, humility, and conscience, I ask you to step down and resign. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next comment.
I'm going to continue where I left off before.
Please
Because
state your, please
the
state
paper,
your,
Joanna Martin from West Piston Ward 2, because the paper supply was a major follow-up, but there were other things that went on. Again, I was a first-time judge of elections. The provisional voters that we passed through had no privacy to vote because my judge's bag did not have any privacy springs. Another thing my judge's bag didn't have was the numbered pad to mark down the voters after they signed to vote. I didn't even know I was supposed to have that. The only reason I realized it is because I went out to another ward for some paper and it was sitting on the desk. And I asked, what is that? Well, you need to have that, filled out along with your voter, your ballot book. Went back, rechecked my bag. It wasn't there. Okay. One more thing. Training. It sucked. Pardon my French. It sucked. I could have said something else, but I said it sucked. 1 hour is no way feasible to train somebody. And I don't want to hear, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's a piece of cake. I've been doing laundry for 45 years and it's a piece of cake. I was upset. 2 ladies walked out from training. They didn't even get to get the training. They just walked out and quit on you. Now I realize that these are people that are working underneath you. Is there not a checks and balances system? Is there not somebody that goes through a judge's bag and makes sure everything is there that a judge of election needs? There was a serious lack of training. It speaks for itself. There was also a lack of communication. How many times I called for assistance. First time, nobody answered. It took 4 hours later. And then when I'm telling her about the stuff out of my bag, you sure? Are you calling me a liar? You have no right to call me a liar. There was also an incident with Joe Grantee, my machine operator. He was helping me to shut the machines down at the end of the night. I was doing the tabulator. He was working on the voting machines. Called me over. He said, let me show you something. Showing me that he has all of the machine locked up. Okay. He said, look at this small circle that's on the machine, the lock of the machine. He picked it and jimmied it around and it came off. He was able to open up the machine without breaking the security tabs, which them and themselves are, that's a joke. I can cut those with my scissors, right? My little fold up scissors. When he was demonstrating to me, I was completely taken back. I didn't know what to do. I said, oh, you know what? Just make sure everything is as secure as you can get it and send it, they'll go back. Another worker at that time made the comment, what do you expect from Dominion? Is this the type of election integrity that you would like to portray for Luzerne County?
Thank you very much. Anybody else in this room? Oh,
That's all right.
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're up next.
Desiree Edwards from Swearsville. I don't even know why I'm standing up here now, because if we still have investigations from what, 2021?
Possibly, I don't know. I wasn't here.
I mean,
Please let her talk.
my father will be dead before his is even heard out. My name's Desiree Edwards. I live in Swearsville, PA. Last Tuesday, I took my 94-year-old veteran father to vote in person on election day, as he has for years voted in person. We were told that he had already voted by a mail-in ballot. My father said he did not. As we left the polling place, I said to my father, let's go over to the Bureau of Elections. My father proceeded to say, no, just take me home. I won't live another year to vote anyway. It broke my heart. Approximately 2 years ago, I moved my father from his home to an apartment complex. During that time, my sister changed all of his mailing information and also signed him up to receive a mail-in ballot, as things were hectic with the move, and the pandemic was still considered an emergency. He never did a mail-in ballot before 2 years ago, and he never received a mail-in ballot for this election. After I took my father home, I could not stop thinking about how he was not able to vote in this election. So I went to the Bureau of Elections to try to get some answers. I spoke with 2 women there, but I did not get their names. I asked for the names of the people that I spoke to, and I didn't get their names. Michael Butera, an attorney, was there and talked to him, and we crunched all the dates, and they brought signature boxes over and a pamphlet of all the dates that my father had voted. And I pointed out that my father's signature and something wasn't right. Mr. Butera and the other girl that was there also were looking at them. Mr. Butera said, we need to turn this over to the district attorney. And he took all my information and said that he would give the information to the district attorney and someone would be in touch with me. And I gotta say, when we're up here talking and we're telling you guys stuff that's happening, I think we deserve feedback.
Thank you.
When we have questions, I think we deserve feedback.
Thank you very much. And your name, please?
Donna Coker, Lake Township. 3 hours of amazing responses from people from this county, outside of the county. Everyone's affected. It's all paper. I've heard it all. Everybody has a great point. How about timeliness? How about timeliness for a response to this? Timeliness on an investigation. Who wants to hear that stuff's going to sit for a year or 2 years? People are making decisions on our lives every day because of this election. It shouldn't be certified. It can't be certified. And I'm looking forward to seeing a question on the ballot of, can we decide who's responsible, who should stay, and who should go? Lake Township is a small township. We in the election board there, we have an obligation to everyone in our township. They're going to be asking in May, well, what's going on? How do we know this is going to be okay? We need answers for them. And one thing out of all the valid points that I've heard tonight, and everybody's point is valid, is, do you realize with all the anger out there from this, it could have been in an instant, one angry person walking into a ballot place into an election place and taking out the whole election board because they were that angry. Is negligence about paper and people not looking into it? Does it have to get to that? Do we have to be the next tragedy on the news? We want to know when this is going to get done, who's going to do it, the who, what, where, when, why, and how. It has to be answered. When I ask my kid a question, I want my kid to answer that question, not give me every reason why and why not. Please, people are going to be calling. People are going to be asking. This isn't going away tonight, no matter how long we have to talk or.
We'll come here every meeting.
They're
don't
going to come
interrupt
to
her
meetings.
speaking.
They're going to come. No, I'm fine with it. Everyone's going to call, show up. This isn't ending that easily. And we are asking, you're saying to bring back integrity, not to disenfranchise people. We want to know when, how, and who. Not maybe this one can fix it, maybe that one can fix it. We want it done. No big brooms here. Come up with a plan. If we don't have plans at our jobs, we get fired. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to throw darts, but the plan would have been everything. We counted on the county at the polls. We got mailboxes full. We got no answers. Rovers that were running around, they too didn't even have the answers. How does something go on without a plan? All the who, what, where, when, and why should have been answered long before those machines got shipped.
Thank you. Anybody else within this room before we move to the rest of the people on the list from outside the room? No? No? Okay. We'll need Brian Dwyer, Bob McMillan, and Shirley Dahl.
Brian Dwyer already.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian Dwyer spoke. Bob McMillan and Shirley Dahl. Bob McMillan, I'm sorry, but I think you already spoke. I'm
Yeah, we
sorry.
got you.
Okay. Bob McMillan and Shirley Dong.
Hi, my name's Bob McMillan again, Union Township, and I have a question for the board. You all voted to send it to the DA's office. What is the suspicious activity you suspect, and how are you going to certify election results if you suspect suspicious or criminal activity? How are you going to do it? You have come out right and voted yes to send a referral to the DA's office. That means you suspect suspicious or criminal activity. At this point, how do you do it? And I am requesting at this point a right to know on your formal paperwork or your referral to them based on your information what it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Dom. Shirley Dom. Or anyone else in the outer waiting room.
This lady with the purple sweater just came in. Would you like to speak?
Oh, go ahead.
My name is Beth Marachko, and I'm from Kingston. I was out there sitting with hundreds of people. You didn't see them, but they're people, they're angry, they're everyday workers. Some of us own our own businesses. We work our butts off for this county because you get our tax dollars. I was talking to another lady and she brought up a good point. We did not have a paper shortage. We had a ballot shortage. There is a difference between a ballot and paper. You need to change your wording, folks, because a paper ballot is not nothing compared to the actual ballot. We had a ballot shortage, not paper, ballot. B-A-L-L-O-T, ballot. And you watch the little black box in your house, democracy is on the line. Get out and vote. You took our democracy away by taking the ballot away. Our democracy is the ballot.
Thank you. Okay, if there, if there's anybody else in the outer waiting room, otherwise we're going to move to the Zoom platform. No response? Okay, we're going to move now to the Zoom platform. We have several hands up. And we'll start with Marin, M-A-R-R-I-N. Please unmute, Marin. Marin? If not, we'll move to the next. We'll move to Steve Urban.
Marin's still muted.
Yeah. They might have been still up since the beginning. They spoke in the beginning. Okay, Mr. Urban.
Steve Urban, Kingston, and in Wilkes-Barre, in transition. Quite honestly, I find it very reprehensible that some of the board members still don't understand their powers and duties based under statute. You are a quasi-judicial board under most case law. I've been stressing this a long time. I mean, I was on the first election inquiry committee a couple years ago. We had passed on a lot of recommendations that nobody listened to. I've been stressing that comprehensively, we all need to get together. It takes like 16 or 17 people to do what 3 people do in other counties. Obviously, we have a machine problem. We have the executive branch too, fighting with everybody. I mean, and not really allowing you to have the power that was conferred on you by the charter and state statute. That power conveyed upon you is a great power, and you guys haven't exercised. And we've granted you the power by appointing you as public officials. We all are sworn in as public officials. And obviously we have a management problem. And I'm probably going to propose a government study commission ordinance. Look at our form of government. I don't think it's working. The Democrat Party, Republican Party should be screaming. Both parties should be screaming that you've disenfranchised a lot of people this past Tuesday. I got phone calls early in the morning that we were out of paper. Very reprehensible. The county controller should be looking at the county aspect of purchasing of that paper. He could look at it, do an audit with purchasing, do an audit on the department head or the department head's responsibility from within the county. I think I do agree with Brian Dwyer. I mentioned it during the county council meeting last Wednesday that we need an outside investigation with outside powers to really reassess what we do in Luzerne County. Look at the charter, look at the powers that you all have, the powers that we have and we possess. And yes, the buck stops with the county manager. I made it very clear in the past with him that he should hire good number 2s and right under him to run those divisions, to run those departments. And obviously he has not done that. And unfortunately, he's going to be a casualty of a resignation or possible termination. But, I think it needs to go a little bit deeper. He should have the intestinal fortitude to also, terminate the employment of certain individuals wherever, the fault lies. He should actively seek that before he exits and remediate some of the problem. It's not going to fix all of it, but I can assure you as a councilman, I will be looking at this I'll probably speak on this issue more tomorrow since we're limited for 3 minutes, even though as officials, we should be allowed to speak a little bit longer to one another. This is the problem.
Thank you.
You cut people off and that's why we don't get ahead.
Thank you. Andrea Giacomo.
Yes, Andrea Giacomo, Hunlock Township.
We heard a lot today about the ballot shortage and the fact that pushing this off to the DA's office is going to, in fact, bury it for a few years. I don't see how you can go forward with certifying an election with as many obvious issues, and these were just on the surface issues without an investigation, how you can go about certifying an election with so many problems. The other questions I have is the voting in person is a right. Although lately the emphasis has been on mail-in ballots, which a lot of us have a very low confidence in. Is this situation with a ballot shortage a way to move people, migrate people, force them into a mail-in ballot situation? I hope not. But it begs the question, is it? The other question I have for the board is the registration rolls. How often are they updated and how often are they purged? Are we working with clean registration rolls when we're, it seems like there's so much emphasis on the mail-in ballots that went nice and smooth. With a huge investment in equipment, and drop boxes, etc., where our basic right to vote in person was sabotaged. Again, I don't see how you could certify this election. I think we should have a redo with paper ballots, and that's the only way we're going to have confidence in the election.
All right, is that all?
Yep, that's all. I mean, I just feel we did not have a free and fair election. We had voter suppression, and that's not how it's done that's not what so many veterans died for.
Okay, thank you very much. Next comment, Robert Fisher.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you again for allowing me to speak. Obviously, and again, I do appreciate your hanging in there and listening to all the people speaking this evening. At the last council meeting, it was suggested that the Dominion voting machines be sold and the county go back to using paper ballots to return our integrity of elections or the in-person of voting. Because we can't do much about the mail-in, that's done and it is there. But for the people that like to in-person vote, such as myself and a lot of others, as we found in this election, the integrity of that is not only because of the lack of paper, but also I feel the Dominion machines are not trusted by the voters. What I'd like to see, and again, question, does the accuracy of the electronic machines get tested after each election? The machines imprint a code on each paper ballot that's supposed to provide the enumerator the results of the printed names on the ballot. The enumerator machine, which almost looks like a shredding machine, does not read the printed names, and no one can tell you or us whether the code that is on that ballot represents the person's actual vote. This leads to voters questioning whether the code is recording their actual vote, or someone at Dominion could have modified the recording code to change their vote because we don't have access to their coding. This has to be the biggest integrity issue with the electronic machines. I have a question. Is there an audit of the paper ballots to match the printout of the enumerator machine to ensure that the recorded votes match the ballots? Does the audit also include matching the totals of the ballots with the enumerator totals? If there is a ballot, if there is an audit, are representatives of each party allowed to observe and other results, along with the statistical probabilities reported to the public? If not, why not? An audit would reassure the electorate that there is integrity with the use of the electronic machines for in-person voting. If audits of the enumerators and ballots have been done, I personally request access to a copy of the Luzerne County audit report of that for the 2020 general election. Again, I thank you for your indulgence and your listening, but we have a problem. You know we have a major problem, and I do not think the in-person voting should be certified at this point. If you want to do that with the mail-in, I think that's probably fine, but the in-person should be revoted with paper ballots for everybody to have an opportunity to come back and vote, as they were not
Thank you very
given
much.
when the paper was out. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment real quick. I'd like to personally apologize to each and every Luzerne County voter because this happened on my watch and I feel responsible. And I want you to know that this does bother me. I don't sleep much. I haven't slept much since last week. And this does bother me. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I do apologize. Okay?
Next caller, Ally. Please state your name and municipality.
Allison Slavish, Wilkes-Barre City.
ahead.
Fortunately, I'm a previous seasonal employee down at elections. I was fortunate enough to get trained by our previous director who was there and loved her job and did it very well, but y'all wanted to get rid of her. Since then, we've had 5 or 6. But there are manuals that state each judge's box needs to have X amount of provisionals, X amount of emergency ballots. These are not new ballots. They've been used for decades. They've always been there. We just didn't need them as we need them now. They're also supposed to have at least 2 cardboard things that you would go in for privacy to use these ballots, which I guess were never delivered either. My other question would be, there's a few weeks before the election that you need to go down to the warehouse and you check the machines, you troubleshoot the machines. Back in the day, it was the director, one of the girls in the office that's in charge of the warehouse, and the sheriff. And they went down there, and for days, they troubleshot these machines before they were sealed, and then they're opened when they get to the ward. If you did that, you would have seen that there was no paper there. So I'm wondering if they were troubleshot or if they were just sealed, because you would have noticed, hey, there's no paper here. We need to fill this before we seal it and send it out. The scanners themselves are not precinct specific. So you wouldn't be able to say, hey, this one's going to such and such place and it's Republican or Democrat, to make sure there was paper or there was not paper. They are not precinct specific. So that doesn't fly either. But there are manuals on when things need to be done, by what date, how they need to be done. And I'm just losing my mind because I did this for 5 years seasonally and we didn't have these issues. And I helped train, and the training was 3 hours. And we used to go all the way, all kinds of places in Luzerne County so people could come and get trained. I'm just at home listening to this and I want to lose my mind because this is not the way it used to be. And it's a hot mess. It's an absolute hot mess that needs to be fixed. But there are manuals on when things need to be done and how they need to be done. Obviously, they were not read. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next caller, P.E. Smith. Go ahead.
Hi, Patrick Smith, Hanover Township. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're just breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, okay. If this isn't an argument for mail-in ballots, I don't know what is. The only suggestion I could make to you is when you do go to the district attorney for the investigation, ask him if he can do it in a timely manner, and if he doesn't believe he can, then ask him to pass it on to the state attorney generals. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. And thank you for holding the hearing tonight.
Thank you. Next caller, 15704, please state your name and municipality.
Hi, my name is Michelle Michalowsko, and I am a resident of Kingston Township. My comment this evening is actually what occurred prior to Election Day, and I'm speaking specifically about the mail-in ballots. I have a family member with a disability who was approved for a mail-in ballot on October the 20th and never received that ballot. There was an article in the Citizen's Voice Friday prior to Election Day, which stated if you did not receive your ballot, to call the Election Bureau or to email them. So I started calling for this family member numerous times. The phone call would be answered. They'd say no one is available. They're transferring you, and it would be disconnected. I work full time, so that was very difficult to keep calling, but I kept doing it. And finally, when I did speak to someone, I was told that the mail-in ballots could be picked up until 4 o'clock. And I said, but I work until 4. I would have to go home, pick up the family member and get him over to Wilkes-Barre with his ID to pick up his ballot. So that was beyond the 4 o'clock time. So I asked what is supposed to happen in this situation. One of the workers there told me that the ballot would be sent overnight delivery. That was on Friday. When the ballot still didn't arrive Monday, I kept calling again. And I was told the ballot was still on the desk. It had never been sent. So I know there was there were other people who did not receive their mail-in ballot. So while you're investigating everything that happened on Election Day with the paper supply, I hope we will also get answers as to what happened that people did not receive mail-in ballots.
Ms. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to answer your question. Are you done though? I wanted to make sure I didn't.
Yes.
take away from your- Okay. There is a form. It's called, it's got a very, very long name. It's called, but there is a form that you can use to pretty much accept. And what I would suggest you do is go and get that form filled out. You only need to fill it out once, I believe, right? And then you can represent them in the election, pick up a ballot for them. And also you can go ahead and drop off the ballot for them once it's filled out, as long as they sign it, and date it. And you can go ahead and drop it off for them. We have made that process fairly easy, so you are able to do that. It's just a simple form that you can have them sign, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that, but I was told that you had to pick up the ballots by 4 o'clock, and I work until 4 o'clock. So that would have been impossible.
Yeah, that is a whole nother situation. I apologize for that.
Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll have Dean. And Dean, it's Dean, if you could state your name and your municipality. Dean is still muted. Dean, could you unmute, please? Dean? Okay, we'll move on to NTOM. Please state your name and municipality.
Nicole Thomas, Huntington Township. I don't know if this was brought up yet. I apologize. I missed some of the meeting. But there were many registered voters who showed up at their polling places. They've been voting in every election for years at the same, polling place. and their names were not in the book, and no proof of their registration to vote. I hope that this is also being looked into, because there were many people, registered voters, who vote in every election, that were turned away and could not vote in this election because of the fact that there is no record of them being a registered voter. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joyce, Robert Joyce. I think we might have lost him. I don't see him on there anymore. We'll go back to Marin, because that's the only one who didn't speak. We'll give Marin one more try, Marrin.
And Robert Joyce is back.
Oh, okay, we'll try Marin first. Marin, if you could unmute. Nope, okay, we'll go back to Robert Joyce. Robert Joyce, go ahead and unmute. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much for election board for allowing me the moment to speak. This is Robert Joyce from Jenkins Township. The reason I'm calling is, in the past, I had the pleasure of serving the County Elections Bureau in the capacity of a judge of elections for a time in Pittston City, as well as in Exeter for fill-in elections as well. At that time, the Elections Bureau in Luzerne County was well run by Mr. Len Piazza and his staff at that time. It was very efficient in my experience. Items were counted, taken care of. The machines were dropped off at the facilities, and the elections ran very smoothly, and we had no problems. And I know there was an issue back at the time whether or not he would punch in or punch out of the office, that then led to his separation of employment with the county at that time. And I think I've said this in every election to anyone that I speak with. We lost a lot of our electoral integrity in this county when the head of the Bureau, Mr. Piazza, at that time, was separated from the county. We've had many people who have floated in. We've had many people who have floated out of the position. We've had people who have come from other elected offices as part of their chief of staff or whatever the case may be. And everyone has the ability to be part of this process. However, I think truly it comes down to one thing to me. And it comes down to this. Many people in this country have fought and died for the right to vote. They have fought for that ability for people to be able to come out either by mail ballot or by appearing at the polls. And the fact that we ran out of, in essence, ballots, the way our machines work, you must print that ballot in order for a vote to count. And the fact that that paper was not readily available, or the fact that that package that was delivered to that precinct was not sent there, knowing that everything was in place for the event somebody would come to vote, is just very disheartening to me. I think we really need to get to the bottom of this. I think we need to find the leadership that we had in an individual like Mr. Piazza in the past. Debbie Miller, who was part of that Elections Bureau office back then, they knew what was going on. They ran the office well. And I think what's happened to us is through the internal items of politics in this county, doesn't matter what party, because ultimately when it comes to the county, a lot of it goes one path. And unfortunately, as a result, the voters suffer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, the only thing we have left is to allow any who are on their phone to speak. So if we could let them all in, unmute if they would like to unmute. And if any who are on phone calls would like to speak, just jump right in.
Do you want to tell them how to unmute?
Any-
Michael Susick is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, I see Mr. Michael Susick would like to speak. And then we'll go to the phone callers. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Mike.
Hi, Michael Susick, Laughlin Borough. I am the former director of elections for Luzerne County, and I'm only speaking on behalf of myself. And, you know, to be honest, I mean, this has been incredibly emotional for me to watch the past week. And, you know, I don't have anything scripted to say, but something does need to be said in defense of some of the staff who really stepped up. I won't call anybody out by name, but the folks that I worked with, it's very disheartening for me to hear members of the public and council, you know, calling for firings and terminations before any sort of investigation has ever occurred. I don't think that's appropriate for any council member, and that is a bit of interference, in my opinion. The two staff that continuously get called out are as good as anybody I've ever worked with, and elections are incredibly complex. And if you were there in the office, you would know that those two individuals are incredibly smart, incredibly hardworking, and have been without leadership. And I'm part of that problem. I came and left. If you go back 2 years, you'll find that, you know, 2.5 years. I think if you include every county manager, appointed county manager, division head, appointed division head, director, deputy, I think they've had a new person in a leadership position every 2 months. And then people like the operations manager who stepped up, the nerve of council members to suggest that there should be firings. The board members here who sit and work with those people, they know how incredibly smart and dedicated and hardworking those persons are. And with the right support, they could be running this. I mean, these were human mistakes were made. I don't have any special inside knowledge of that. I know what you guys know from the papers. But this call for heads to roll, that's got to stop. You know, I think it's important to do an investigation you think needs to be done. But, you know, obviously I wasn't there during this past election, other than I was there at the front end of it back in, you know, July and August. And God, it's heartbreaking because I know how incredibly smart and dedicated and hardworking those individuals are. And we talk about turnover, and this is going to be their third IT director that they're looking at in just the past year. Even their internal IT person just left. You know, so to say that, you know, we need a whole do-over, there has been no continuity there. And the people who are stepping up, those, to call them out before any sort of investigation is done, I just encourage a more tempered response. And that's all. I had to say something on their behalf.
Thank you very much. Okay. If there are any who are on phone calls who would like to unmute, and to unmute, it's *6. If you'd like to speak, just go right ahead.
Hello?
Hello, please state your name and your municipality.
Oh, I've been trying to get through for like an hour and a half. I'm glad to get through. My name's Bob Kalabowski. I'm calling from Wilkes-Barre. And I think, I know you have a tough job to do, but I think it's a slap in the face to all those poor people that are down there. They only get 3 minutes to speak and then you cut them off. These people are frustrated, and our county is the laughing stock of the country. But it seems like you don't answer questions. Now, I'm going to ask you to make a motion tonight not to certify this election until this thing is investigated properly. And I almost burst out laughing when I heard somebody say the FBI to investigate it, like the same FBI that interfered with our national election for the president, going to Facebook and I think Twitter. So I'm just going to ask you again, I want you to, right now, so everybody could hear and so it could get in the paper, that you're going to make a motion not to certify this election until this thing is thoroughly, properly, and fairly investigated by whoever you got to get to do it. And I think that this thing is such a mess. It's such an embarrassment, and there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people who did not have the right to vote, whose votes might not have been counted. And if you would have made it a little easier to call in, you'd probably be there for the next 2 days answering phone calls. So I'm going to ask you is, will you do that tonight? Vote not to certify this election. And I'd like to stay on the phone until I get an answer. And that's all I had to say. Hello?
Hello, thank you very much
Yeah.
for your comments. When
All right,
we
can I have
have
an
our,
answer?
when we vote to certify our election at our certification meeting, and that doesn't take place until after, until we schedule it, and it's not scheduled right now. So that's when that vote would take place.
All right,
And,
well, will you consider that not certifying this election? So can I get an answer?
This is public comment time. This is not, we're not addressing that. So do you have anything
Well,
else? You have 38 seconds
Well, no,
if
but
you'd like any more of your time.
what happens? Do I melt into the ground if I don't go over? But what I would like
No,
you to do is take that into consideration.
Okay.
This is such a mess. Take that into consideration. And could the public be there to make comments when you go to vote on this?
Yeah,
At that
it's always a public meeting when we have the certification meeting.
Okay, do you know when that'll
And
be, ma'am?
it's always posted legally and it's online. We have to put, by the Sunshine Act, we have to post it in the, as a legal notice.
Okay.
So that's always
I hope you.
public information.
Okay, thank you, and I hope you do the right thing and not certify it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. If there are any other phone call voters who would like to speak. Nobody else? Okay, I don't see anybody unmuting to speak. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
By Ms. Fusaro. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mangan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any abstentions, objections? None heard. Meeting's adjourned at 9:35. Thank you. Good night.